Can we take our seats? Can we take our seats, please? Good morning, everybody. Thank you all for joining us. My name is Peter Cosgrove. I'm a small business owner, managing director of Futurewise, and I'm your MC for today. We're delighted you could all join us here in person, as well as a really good group online, which we will continue to connect with as well. It's great to welcome participants from a wide range of small to medium enterprise. I know you'll get some very practical information from today's sessions. As well as the online audience, we will do a little bit of filming just for the socials, you know, the cool stuff. So if anyone's got an issue with any of that, please let the people at the front desk know. We're delighted to be joined by speakers from across the university and the public sector, panelists from higher education and enterprise, and you can see behind me the schedule for today. Today's event isn't going to be presentation heavy, but you will get lots of time to ask questions, and please use the breaks to connect with other people. Just so I get a good understanding of the audience, a little bit of audience participation to start with. Hands up, how many people have said during January they're going to eat less? Hands up. Come on, be honest. Okay. Yep. And hands up, how many people said they're going to exercise more? Okay, and for how many people was that the most exercise? No, okay. And a little bit more honest now. No one outside the room is going to hear this, I promise. But hands up, how many people here have ever used their phone while driving? Be honest. Oh yeah, a few of us. Okay, and last one. Hands up, how many people have ever left the bathroom without washing their hands? Almost nobody ever answers yes to that question. And I just want to highlight that that just can't be true, but that's the point, okay? There's certain things that embarrass us more. That segues quite nicely into the fact that the toilets are actually downstairs. They're not on this floor, they're below. There's 3 toilets there. If during the session you need to get up and go, this isn't a school, you can just leave and pop down. There's also further on the arts block for as well. You've also got different coloured badges for whether you're business or university, so when you're networking with people afterwards. So we hope you have a great day. I'm going to start by introducing the first 2 speakers. Paul Johnston is the Director General of the IUA, and he's going to be followed by Joe Healy, Division Manager for Research, Innovation and Enterprise Ireland, to give you some opening comments for the day. So Paul, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter, and good morning, everyone. Welcome to the splendid precincts of Trinity College on this beautiful, beautiful January morning. Like many other people, I guess, during the pandemic, there wasn't much else to do apart from making sourdough and exercising, but to watch TV. And my sort of first acquaintance with Trinity College was watching Normal People, and got a very good sort of understanding of what it must be like to be an Irish undergraduate, and rather wishes that I'd been an Irish rather than a Scottish undergraduate. But we're talking not today so much about undergraduates as we are about the sort of partnership between this sector and the SME sector. And I'm in my first few weeks as the relatively new head of the Irish Universities Association, which brings together Ireland's 7 research-intensive universities, including this one. I'm delighted to have the chance to open this really important and I think exciting and timely event here today. So many thanks to everyone at Trinity College, in Enterprise Ireland, in my own team at the IUA, who've worked so hard to put today together. Many thanks to you for coming here today. In the previous job I did as the British Ambassador here in Ireland for 5 years, I had the great privilege and the opportunity to travel around this wonderful country and to see at first hand the importance, indeed I'd say the centrality, of the 2 sectors that we are bringing together here today, the SME sector and the world of higher education. Both have clearly been critical and are going to continue to be critical to the development of modern Ireland. And I see my job and our job at the IUA, working with all of you, as to continue to develop an even closer partnership between the 2 sectors for our mutual benefit. I think the reasons for an ever closer partnership are obvious, but I think also worth emphasising, not least at the start of a discussion like today's. You only need to sort of open the newspapers or look at your phone or however you access the world of news any given morning to realise that we're working, we're researching, we're living against a backdrop of significant, radical, often unpredictable change nationally and internationally. Geopolitical uncertainty, demographic shifts, culture wars in many countries, a rapid acceleration of AI and digital change more generally, reshaping the world of work, the world we all live in. And as a result, these changes will affect the skills and the qualities and the workforce that Ireland will need in the future, and that we'll all need as individuals, as employers, as employees, fundamentally as citizens as well. And it seems to me that for a small, outward-facing, open, knowledge-based economy like ours, how we develop talent, skills and innovation in response to this fast-changing world is going to be really critical, so we can respond to the changes that are ahead of us, but also, so far as possible, get ahead of those changes as well. And I think SMEs and universities are partners who will be in the front line of that effort. It's clear that a lot of the typical domestic and international media, and indeed political focus on Ireland, tends to be on the very particular circumstances of the big global corporates who contribute so much FDI and so much tax revenue to this country. But I think a lot of people are realising that looking ahead, important and valuable, though that will no doubt continue to be to the Irish economy and society, it's clear that growing homegrown indigenous businesses and building them up at scale will be really central to a genuinely sustainable future for the Irish economy and society, given the more fractured, competitive, challenged, perhaps less open economic world that we're heading into, if we're not there already. So SMEs are now and into the future going to be ever more, I think, the cornerstone of the Irish economy. Today, almost 70% of the workforce across Ireland are employed by an SME. They sustain jobs and families literally in every county and community. And they play, and will play, I think, ever more, a vital role in Ireland's economic resilience, competitiveness and societal well-being. Start-ups are a huge and growing part of that. Newly active enterprises are increasing in this country by more than 25% year on year, and associated employment is rising by nearly 90%. Now, for SMEs, as for any business, you depend on people, attracting talent, developing skills, and thus being able to innovate and adapt quickly in this world of change. And that's, I think, a really important area where universities can help. Our role is to educate, to generate new knowledge, and to contribute to economic and societal development at the local, the regional and the national level, through teaching, of course, including developing and young and perhaps not so young minds, as well as through research and innovation. And that's why engagement between universities and SMEs is, it seems to me, a strategic necessity. Our universities and our SMEs have a good record of working together over time, including 3 particular ways I wanted to highlight today, because I think we can build on each of them, and today's event is crucially important intended to support that work. First of all, in the area of graduate formation and recruitment. Universities are a key source of talent for SMEs, but this is also a two-way street. SMEs play a really important role in graduate formation through placements, through internships, project-based learning, all of that exposing students to real-world challenges. This strengthens graduates' practical skills and also gives SMEs early access to talent aligned to their business needs. Secondly, in the area of workforce development, universities work with SMEs to support upskilling and reskilling of existing employees through flexible short courses, including micro-credentials. To take one example, the University of Galway recently worked with the SkillNet Offshore Wind Academy to develop a micro-credential that equips SMEs in the renewable and environmental sectors with the practical skills needed to develop environmental impact assessments for offshore wind projects. And you sense that's only an area of business that's going to grow in the years to come. More generally, I suspect we will see a growing share of a typical university population in the years to come being represented by those who are in work, or perhaps between jobs, doing MicroCreds like that, or other flexible, shorter courses. So we as universities need to understand the evolving needs of SMEs in this context, as well as that of the wider business world, so that we can make the transition to this sort of different blended approach work for all of us. The third area I'd highlight is research and innovation. Universities can support SMEs in their efforts to access research expertise, specialist facilities and innovation partnerships. SMEs bring real-world business challenges and workplace know-how to the university world, and universities bring research capability and expertise into the business world. Together, this collaboration will support innovation, productivity and growth for both sectors. Here at Trinity, to take another example, the Connect Research Centre has supported the SME Nexalus by providing access to advanced research expertise, facilitating recruitment of skilled researchers and helping with technology transfer and commercialisation activities. And this has contributed directly to the company's growth and its own capacity to innovate. And we'll be hearing more about this directly from the horse's mouth, from the CEO and the founder of Nexalus later in the event. Our universities have shown that we can respond at scale to changing enterprise needs when the policy and funding environment is there to support this. Through the Human Capital Initiative, for example, funded through employers' contributions to the National Training Fund, universities have developed more than 600 new short courses just in the last few years, and they supported over 20,000 learners, many of them employees in SMEs like those represented today. The IUA and our universities are ambitious to accelerate and deepen this partnership to deliver more and more flexible short courses to better support the SME sector. This will require, of course, practice, policy and funding to continue to evolve to help us scale and sustain these innovations. As you'd perhaps expect, the higher education funding model was built and is still largely built around the notion of a traditional full-time, first-time student, an undergraduate coming here to do 3 or 4 years. But if we are serious about scaling flexible provision and supporting learning throughout the life cycle, through, for example, activities like recognition of prior learning, which you'll hear about also later, the funding system, I think, will need to continue to evolve to support this. Similarly, I'm sure that businesses, above all, would agree that for you, for business owners, appropriate supports and incentives must be in place to enable learners and employers, especially often time-poor, resource-limited SMEs, to engage with universities on a sustained and sustainable basis. So I see the purpose of today's session as being to bring out the different ways that we can engage with each other, to share examples of what works, to hear honestly perhaps about some of the blockages so that we can identify them and seek to unblock them, and to help make the pathways to closer and more effective partnerships between universities and the SME world even better and even closer. I think it's also about forging and deepening connections between us as individuals and the institutions and the companies we represent, because effective engagement will depend above all on a shared understanding and a candid dialogue. So I'm really looking forward to the discussion today. As a newbie to this area, I'm really looking forward to learning a lot, to hearing your perspectives about how we can continue to meet the needs of businesses and of universities, given that both and their partnership, I think, will only grow in importance in the Ireland of tomorrow and beyond. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Joe Healy. I head up our Research and Innovation Division within Enterprise Ireland. Pleasure to be here in Regent's House in Trinity College for today's event. I think it's an important event. SMEs and universities, ways to engage. I think it's a really, really important topic. I'd like to thank our host, Trinity College Dublin, and our partners, the IUA, for collaborating with us and making this important conversation possible. And for me personally, great to be back here as a former graduate of Trinity, where I spent many happy hours up here in its former guise as the junior common room. So today is all about connection and opportunity. The IUA 7 universities represent a powerhouse of talent, research and innovation. And for our SMEs, who are the backbone of the Irish economy and for whom we want to be the driver of the Irish economy, engaging effectively with these institutions is no longer optional. It is essential. As Paul outlined, the pace of change in skills, technology and market demands mean that businesses must ever more quickly adapt, and universities are uniquely positioned to do just that. The geopolitical situation will remain uncertain and volatile. That's the environment we are now in. that level of uncertainty, sovereignty, the impact on trade, the impact internationally has increased since probably 2015, 2016. There's no end in sight. This is the environment within which businesses have to operate. So the client need is clear, and the source of that solution is equally clear. But if I look back on my time in Enterprise Ireland, we've been trying to connect SMEs with the third level sector for 25 years. So I'm pleased that at this moment in time, we have the most successful, most sophisticated, most ambitious cohort of SMEs that Ireland has ever had in its history, when we judge by their export success. More Irish companies are producing more innovative goods and services and winning more contracts internationally than ever before. However, there's still a gap. We've made loads of progress. We need to reduce the friction. We need to make it easier for both companies and universities to engage more effectively. So our goal is very simple here, is to bridge the gap between the SME sector and the university sector. And it's a continuous journey. And I want to recognise the huge amount of progress that has been made in that time. And it's fantastically pleasing to see that. And there's been huge efforts by loads of colleagues on both sides to make it more effective. So we're now in a position where SMEs can access supports, expertise, talent pipelines in order to future-proof their businesses. And whether it's attracting graduates and research talent, leveraging AI in teaching and learning, exploring pathways for upskilling or reskilling your teams, today's sessions will give real practical insights and real-world examples. You'll hear from thought leaders like Peter Cosgrove, who'll set the scene on future skills needs, and from university representatives and SME innovators who are already making these partnerships work and are exemplars as to how we can build on that. And as already outlined, we'll explore critical topics around micro-credentials, the recognition of prior learning, and importantly, widening the talent pool. Diversity and inclusion are key to building resilient businesses. I'm especially pleased to highlight a recent and highly significant development for Ireland. We've secured a 23 million boost for our 4 European digital innovation hubs. They are Cedar at UCD, Factory Exchange in Mullingar, and Tyre at Tyndall in Cork, and Data to Sustain in Sligo. And these are really important. They're the EU Digital Europe programme. It's phase 2. It's a game changer as far as Enterprise Ireland is concerned. It provides platforms for SMEs to access AI, cybersecurity, automation support, and targeted specialist expertise. So it's really about supporting digital transformation to underpin our companies. From an Enterprise Ireland perspective, we're committed to supporting you on this journey. Our partnership with the university system through tech centres, entrepreneurial development, upskilling and international education are really critical to this. Through our programmes and partnerships, we want to ensure that every SME can tap into the incredible resources available across our university sector. This is about enhancing and building a skills ecosystem that benefits businesses, graduates and the wider economy. This aligns directly with our own Enterprise Ireland strategy, which is focused on driving innovation, supporting entrepreneurial development and building a world-class talent pipeline to accelerate the development of sustainable Irish businesses in international markets. So I'd encourage you all to make the most of today, ask questions, raise challenges, connect with people in the room. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul and Joe. Before we get into context, just a couple of comments to frame today. Shopify's CEO recently told all his managers that they couldn't hire anybody until they proved AI couldn't do the job, which is slightly concerning that we may need to do more with less as time goes on. We all know AI has become part of everything we do, but we hear less about how difficult it can be to actually implement AI solutions in the business. It all sounds so easy, but it's never been that easy. The phrase, we need to use AI more, is actually fairly meaningless for SMEs because If you haven't actually digitized your business, you haven't even looked into the processes and the data, jumping straight into AI can seem pretty concerning and pretty overwhelming. So a better question for SMEs today is not how do we use AI, it's what are the 3 things that are taking the most time from me and my team, and how could technology and AI help us improve? It's wise to start with the business problem, then look at the digital tools, then look at how AI could help, not the other way around. It's also important to remember a law called Amara's law. We tend to overestimate technology speed in the short term, but in the long term, we underestimate it. Because AI is not hype. And there's a great example of this if you think of, imagine today 10,000 driverless cars drove around Dublin. After the end of the day, 8 hours, that's 1 day's driving. But they'd all go back to their warehouse and then they'd upload their content to the web and then all 10,000 cars would download it. So in 1 day, they actually have 10,000 days experience, which is essentially more than anyone here in the room is. And that's the kind of exponential growth that will happen very, very quickly. The second reality is no one can know all the technology anymore. There's too much, it's too vast, and it's moving too fast. And that's why today things like networking, learning, looking outside your own business, speaking to other people has never been more important. There's actually lots of advantages you guys in SMEs have. You may not have scale, but you have agility. You can test faster, you can adapt faster, you can change how work gets done without layers of approval, and in a world that's changing this quickly, flexibility can beat size a lot of the time. You also need to look up more. Remember, some of the best ideas will come from a completely different sector, which is why you need to connect with others. The roll-on deodorant came from somebody who sold a ballpoint pen. Completely different industry, but actually similar technology. And you have an opportunity today not just to hear the presentations and the panelists, you have an opportunity to gain knowledge from other people. In terms of people themselves, we need to realize that people aren't irrational, and actually getting people to join your companies, can be interesting in terms of how we do that. And we'll talk about this today, but you may realize that they now say that hybrid working is equivalent of an 8% pay rise, because that's how much people want autonomy and flexibility. And if you give that to their employees, you'll increase your talent pool. And SMEs have another huge advantage here. When someone joins a small business, they're really just a cog in a machine. They're close to decisions, they can see the impact, and they matter. And if you make that clear in your job descriptions, you'll attract more people who want purpose, learning, and influence, not just a brand or a job title. You also now have access to job talent around the world with remote working, but also if you see this new technology online where people can now automatically translate their voice from one language to another. And now they've actually changed your lip movement so it looks like we're all speaking every language. That's not complete yet, but in 10 or 20 years it'll be like we can all speak every language perfectly online. We also have to be accountable for who we hire. We're usually great when we hire people, then when we leave we start telling us, oh, they were never very good in the first place. The truth is no one joins a company to do a bad job. So when things start to go wrong, we shouldn't immediately question the person. We should be asking questions like, is this the wrong role? Has the role changed? Do they need different skills? Is there a learning or a support that we could look at? Upskilling, reskilling, or role redesign. This is often the difference between losing talent and unlocking it. Hopefully you hear some of the how about this in today's panels. And let me finish with a short piece of advice to give you examples. Big companies, a big technology company rang me recently and asked me for a reference, and it was taking 15 minutes, which was a long time, and by the end of it I could even hear the person on the other end couldn't give a damn about the answer, they were just ticking a box. So the last question was, would you rehire this person? So I said no, because actually they'd moved to a different area. So I said no, and the person said, oh, that's a bit of a problem. And I said, why is that? He says, oh, that really needs to be a yes. And I said, would you like me to say yes? And they said, oh my God, that'd be so helpful. I highlight that because in a lot of these large organizations, a reference process is done by the most junior person as just a tick box exercise, when actually you've got someone who's worked for 10 years in a different organization and you can find so much out by getting that right. Another advantage of being a small organization. So today we'll help you showcase some practical ways SMEs can engage with universities. And to further this conversation, we now welcome our first presenter of the day, Natasha Kinsella, Manager of the Dublin Regional Skills Forum. Natasha, thank you.
Good morning and thank you. I'm delighted to be here. Thanks to Helen and the EI team, and obviously Grace and the IUA team, and Trinity, who's a partner of the Dublin Regional Skills Fora. Today's, I suppose, session is about finding the right support through that critical engagement in terms of upskilling, Training and pathways. Thank you. A little smaller. Good thing, small parcels. The skills ecosystem, while rich, is complex. We know this from our engagement. So stronger collaboration, as been reinforced for the event today, is particularly important because of the pace of change that SMEs face every day. And it has accelerated faster than maybe the traditional skills talent pipelines can respond. We are also seeing that SMEs simultaneously navigating things like AI adoption, digital transformation, green sustainability, regulation changes, and certainly the talent war that exists. Often without, however, the capacity of developing workforce strategic plans. This is exactly why regional skills are in existence. So who are we? Well, it's 10 years on. I'm in the role now this June, 10 years, but it is a national structure. And we are a structure of a government initiative that is funded by the Department of Further and Higher Education. There are 9 regional skills managers around the country, and I know our colleague Sarah is in the room today, and I'm sure some of the managers online also. It's a dedicated manager in the region for you, the SME business, that you have a one-stop shop to support you navigating that complex system. We act, however, as an impartial conduit, and it's employer-facing that we advise you to navigate the pathways that you might take depending on the challenge that you face. And we certainly focus on helping those employers navigate that system, but we don't close the door to anybody. It's any sector, any size, and any certainly business in any region. But our core values is finding through that engagement the right training at the right time that you need it, focused on the funded elements and how you can access those. I manage the Dublin region, and as we know for those that are in Dublin, it is a complex landscape and one that burdens the majority share of SMEs, but quite positively on the basis of the system that we exist within. There is about 130,000 plus active SME businesses in Dublin, but a lot of those, obviously, as I mentioned, are SMEs and startups, as referred to. What do we do, though, to help them navigate that system? We act almost as a connector and a translator between the employer, the educational provider, and obviously state on the funded side. Our structure is very similar within the 9 regions, and we have a forum of partners and stakeholders, all that inform and help guide the focus of our yearly plan. It's important, though, that we focus on particularly helping the SMEs guide to what it is that they want. And that's an element of assisting to articulate what their skills needs are and the challenges that they face, supporting them to understand and navigate what's actually available for them to access, enhance the alignment between the system itself and real labour market intelligence that we can then inform back at government level on funding elements that they can then prioritise to meet and respond to the needs of the business. One particular project we've worked on for a number of years now with Enterprise Ireland is Spotlight on Skills, and that helps each business identify the critical skills, formulate the plan, and then navigate the system as an action outcome for that. And there's been obviously over 600 companies go through that in the past 7 years. But you don't necessarily have to be an EI client to engage with us to navigate the system. It's important, however, to note that we work as a regional fora, that we're firmly aligned to the national and international policy frameworks, and obviously informing that regional level through our engagement with the businesses looks at the overall national picture and guides our strategic plans. It guides the review based on the OECD outcome and how we can implement some of those recommendations both at regional and national level. But obviously the priorities for SMEs and any business in particular is competitiveness and ensuring that they remain competitive but productive at the same time. It's important equally as well that it's not addressed in isolation. What we do at regional level, feeding into national level, informs the wider ecosystem and those investment skills decisions. What Dublin have done, however, because of the complex landscape we exist within, we've tried to ensure developing a simple toolkit to frame how you need to understand the system. We don't expect SMEs to understand and engage with every single element of the system. What we want them to do is start to have the conversation. That's an important conversation, however, and what we find when we start that engagement, very often the confusion between, well, do I need new skills and talent acquisition coming in, or do I need to upskill certain elements of the employees? So what we've done, and guided very much by all our partners in the fora and business voices, is develop this toolkit so that they start asking those questions, and then we help them identify the pathway that might actually provide the solution for them. So whether it's the question about acquiring new staff, there's potential pathways from our stakeholders there, or certainly the upskilling, as referred to earlier on by Paul, certain pathways that you'll hear some of the other panel members discuss this morning. But it is about building blocks of that workforce development, and I think this is a key element, that it's a phased journey that they start to go on, that it's not a one-hit intervention and then we're gone. And that's where SMEs who now engage with us have certainly continued that journey, and they're almost building that opportunity of lifelong learning through the workforce development plan within their organisation for every single employee that they have, and build that through each year. So we ask them to start with the business challenge, not a course. Very often the first discussion is, I need AI expertise, what course can I do? What is the business challenge? And then we articulate that out, whether it's productivity, compliance, is it talent attraction or retention issues? Again, what Peter referred to, is it somebody already in-house that needs an element of upskilling? Then we look at the pathway. That pathway could result in an intervention of a specific programme that might deliver the solution for the business. And that's quite important to start with. But what we do is, at the right time they need it, at the right level, but with obviously the availability of state funded through the provisions that we guide them on those pathway journeys with our educational partners in the universities. If today does one thing, what I would say, it should give SMEs the confidence that the support is accessible, tailored and designed with you in mind, not just for you. So there's 4 stages obviously to that journey, and that's quite important depending. Every business is at a different life cycle, so every business journey is quite different. And the recognition of prior learning is another element that can support the business through recognising prior experience that your employees already have. So the call to action that I would say today, 1, is reach out to us. Certainly I manage the Dublin region, but as I mentioned, for any business who's on the call today outside of Dublin, there are 9 regional managers you can link with. These slides will be sent out after, so you have the direct contact of each region. I would say to you, start the conversation and certainly engage with identifying what it is that we can guide you and support you in. I would also suggest for those SMEs who haven't done Spotlight on Skills, Robin is here today, sign up please do. But obviously, importantly, how this fits in with the wider panel sessions that come. It's a foundation, obviously, for those certain panels that will guide through a number of pathways, and it frames the SMEs as active partners in skills design rather than passive recipients. It reinforces that system-wide, joined-up approach between all of the stakeholders through our collaboration both at regional and national level. Thank you very much.
So our next section aims to give you an overview of the multiple ways you can engage with any of the 7 IUA universities using our host Trinity College as our featured university. We'll be discussing SME engagement, connecting into the system, attracting graduates and talent, engaging in program design and co-creation, and how SMEs can market themselves to graduates, and also how AI is embedded into teachers and learning. For those viewing remotely, you can put your questions in the Q&A, and noting Paul's earlier comment about normal people, given it's January, you guys online, if you have any good box sets we should all be watching for January, can you put that in the chat? We would all be very much appreciative. Want to keep you guys involved. So while I'm introducing the panelists, can you all come and join me? So we've got Orla Bannon, Director of Careers with TCD, Professor Vinny Wade, Professor of Computer Science, Neil Gordon, Director of the Portal, Samruddhi Dekate, a participant in the EI-funded Work Ready graduate program, and Dr. Cathal Wilson, co-founder and director and CEO of Nexalus. You're all very, very welcome, and I will ask you all, I will not feel upset if you don't answer to me. Please answer out to the audience so they can all see you. And I'm going to start, Orla, with yourself. So Orla, can you give us an overview of the ways an SME can link in with Trinity? I think people would like the basics first.
Sure. And I think Natasha and Paul and Joe, who spoke earlier, have highlighted at a very high level, strategic level, a lot of the ways you can engage. So I suppose what I'd like to do is give you some practical examples of that. And we've been on a bit of a journey on this here at Trinity. We're very aware that as a university we are quite porous. There's lots of different points of connections. And the thing I hear most from SMEs is going, I don't know who to go to in Trinity. Or I contacted somebody and I never heard back. And that's the way it used to be. And we took that very seriously and really thought about what do we need to do here to improve that experience of an SME trying to engage. So what we've done here is really over the last 3 or 4 years developed 2 kind of key entry points into the university for SMEs. One on the talent and skills, which is through myself. I look after the career side, the development side, lifelong learning and enterprise engagement around talent and skills. And then Neil, who's beside me here, is kind of leading on the innovation and research side, and his team deal with all queries in that space. So that's really evolved over the last couple of years and it's become very established. And then we also work very closely together because the starting point for an SME coming to Trinity is, I have a business idea that I'd like to kind of maybe work with some academics in Trinity on. How do I access them? And they might come to Neil's team and then they might say, actually, do you know what? I'm really interested in hiring some PhD graduates to come and work with me as well. And then it comes over into my space and vice versa. So that structure has really evolved a lot, and those dynamic communication systems are really working well at the moment, and we can really see the engagement with SMEs starting to increase at every level. And so once you kind of come into, I suppose, for a lot of companies, it was interesting what Natasha was saying, that companies maybe go to the regional skills forum first, then come into us. So it'll either be my team or Neil's team will be the first point of contact, and we can then connect out. And then depending on what area you want to discuss, we do deeper dives on that. And I know Neil and some of the other team are going to talk about research and innovation, and I'll give some examples around the skills and development side. The other thing that crosses both our teams, which is relevant to everyone in this room, is entrepreneurship, which is very important for us here in Trinity. A lot of our students are very curious, very creative like yourselves, and kind of really see setting up their own business as their career goal. So we work across both teams to really foster that entrepreneurship skills and capabilities here also.
And Orla, when we spoke before, you said you expect an SME to come with one job. That's not an issue, because there is this idea that it's just all the big companies are coming with their 50 jobs. So if they are coming, firstly, how do they come to you, and how would you kind of give them advice in terms of to make sure their job spec kind of stands out to the graduates you have? This is
a really interesting discussion, because I have this a lot with SMEs. You know, I can say, I think a lot of you know here in all the universities, we run graduate careers fairs. We've actually one coming up next week in Trinity for summer internships. If any of you have any, you're more than welcome to come along. So that opportunity is there, but I think sometimes SMEs go, well, you know, how can I compete with all the big multinationals that will be around me offering much higher salaries? How can I compete for graduate talent? And the thing is, SMEs offer something that the big multinationals don't. That's flexibility and the opportunity to learn. Our graduate outcomes data really shows that a lot of our graduates from Trinity go to work in SMEs, and really that attraction is they get the opportunity to experience lots of different areas. The other thing is that a lot of SMEs are at the edge of innovation and creativity, and students and graduates are really drawn to that. And the other thing you have to think about is our students now are very much focused on their values. What is this company about? What does this company stand for? And for a lot of SMEs, they're really doing something very unique in certain spaces that are very topical, and that's very appealing to students to go and work in companies like that. So I would really say to SMEs to embrace that, to be very clear in your job specs about the learning opportunities that your organisations are providing and the breadth of experience that they'll get. That's really important. Work-life balance is a very important issue for graduates coming out. When we do surveys from our graduates about what's the key thing you'll be looking for when you're looking for a job, work-life balance is becoming increasingly important. And I think, you know, for some of the big companies, they're very rigid about their work practices and all of that. Whereas I think with SMEs, by your nature, you're a lot more flexible and agile, and that really appeals to graduates. So I'd really highlight that level of agility and flexibility also.
And, you know, there would be a few people in the audience, I'm not going to say who they are, I might go, look, to be honest, I'm going to apply to you guys, your universities, and you'll probably get back to me in, 6 weeks or something like that. You know, we're SME, we expect kind of quick response times. Can you disabuse me and them of that notion that that's not actually the case, Orla?
Of course it's
for
not
you
the case.
and the other
universities. It's not the
universities.
case. And I think Neil will agree with me on this. You know, we kind of, you know, we can't solve all your problems, and I think that's one of the most important things, and I think Natasha referred to it there. What we want to do is have the conversation with you. So come to us, have the conversation. Even if you only have one job a year, we can do something to connect you with our students and with our graduates. And I suppose that's the one thing to note about a lot of the universities is, well, we talk a lot about graduate recruitment as graduates come out. A lot of our graduates stay very engaged with the university for up to 3 to 5 years after they graduate, and for the career service we continue to provide services to graduates after they leave. So even if you're not interested in hiring, you know, someone who's just coming straight out of university, you might be interested in hiring someone who's 2 or 3 years out, and we can also connect you with that. But just to come back to your point there, Peter, about response times, and we do respond quickly, but we will manage expectations about what we can achieve. Yeah. We can't solve everything, you know, so we kind of have that conversation with you and see what really you're looking for, and with our knowledge, we can see who do we need to connect you with in the university to make that happen. What student cohort do I need to connect you with to make that happen? And that's what we can do.
And final question, Orla, for you for now. So people are now excited, going, great, I actually have some opportunities, I'd love to get some great talent. What's the starting point for any of the 7 universities? Where do they go?
The first point is to go to the career service in your university. Most of you will probably be aware that every university has an internal online jobs board for students. So you can come and you can register with that, and you can post your jobs on that. And you can do that yourselves at any time that you have a job vacancy becoming available. The one we have here in Trinity is called My Career. So you contact me, my team will get back to you, they'll talk you through the registration, get you set up, and that's you up. And you can post jobs, post talks you're doing, post events you're having, and you can have control of all of that. And that goes out to our whole student and graduate population. So you're talking, you know, 50, 60,000 people will see that. So I'd encourage you to do that. And so we can talk you through that process and support you on it.
Fantastic. Now, Professor Vincent Wade, or Vinny Wade as you like to be called, you probably have some of the graduates that people are looking for, I would like to say. So, but maybe start just given there's a lot of people here challenged with this whole area of technology and AI, and it's an area you talk a lot about. Maybe give us your own thoughts on that, especially for businesses and how quick it's moving.
Sure, yeah, thanks for that. So we know that AI is transforming the workplace. And we also know that the media tends to overhype and make people nervous of certain things. And I thought it would be useful just to kind of talk a little about the key things that you need to know. Firstly, in AI, we do think of two things. We think of AI, which is the data science, which is fairly robust, been around for quite a while, still very powerful. And then the generative AI, which is the thing in the last 3 years. So the first part is still there, that data analytics is still there, still really powerful, and still working away. The hype at the moment is all around this thing called generative AI. And really, we have surprised just how powerful it has become. Even from the time it was first rolled out, probably around about 2021, at university level, we were surprised just how powerful it would be to be able to create new content and transform the delivery of media. What has happened is a lot of companies have come to us and said, okay, well, how do we get on this train? What exactly does this train look like? And what we talk about is AI competency. And what that actually means is really asking yourselves a couple of questions. Is what exactly is this generative AI? Because what it really is doing is just predicting the next word. It sounds really mad and really simple, but that's all it does. But it does it particularly well over a huge amount of data. What that means then is it doesn't understand anything it's saying, but it actually seems to make sense. And that's the surprise. So what we always say to people when they begin to look at Gen AI, we say, you've got to understand how it works first. Because all of a sudden, things like hallucination, risk, all of those suddenly begin to make sense. The second thing we always say to them is, look at the opportunities. What are the things, and I thought you said it really well in your introduction, what are the things that are causing you pain? And then look at AI, rather than how do I swallow AI? Because it is not a one-size-fits-all. It's not a hammer making everything look like a nail. It can be shaped in so many different ways. So it's really about what your problem is. The most common usage of Gen AI at the moment is in customer care and so forth. But it's being used in chemical companies and medical companies to generate the next line of products. It does a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of what might be possible pathways and formulations, and then the PhD comes in and actually looks at them. So it's actually used in so many different ways. If you begin to understand that, the other part is for anyone who is not being used in Gen AI or nervous about it and so forth, I would say is play leapfrog. That's the best way of thinking about it, because loads of people have made loads of mistakes, so you can learn from them. Okay? You can begin to look at the case studies, and we have loads of them. Okay? As from a research perspective, like there's the DAP Centre here in Trinity, there's also the Insight Centre, and they collaborate together. They're two massive research centres focused specifically about AI, and can provide that kind of information for you. But those use cases, those case studies are very easily accessed. And what it will do is give you an insight into what the capabilities are. The other thing, again, sorry, using you, but it was a really good example, is the deodorant. You may not find a case study that's exactly like you, but you might say, actually, that's a similar problem, but just presented in a different way. Next one, what are the risks? Because there are legal issues here. In Europe, we're trying to protect the human, okay, which I think is the appropriate way to do it. We're trying to protect society. US, not so much. Innovation is much more important, much more, think of it as Dodge City without a rich tariff. And then you've got Japan, which has in-between rules around its use. I think within Europe, I think that what we're trying to do in ensure is the way we roll out AI actually does support and provides good impact. We don't want to create the problems that social media created. We know how much anxiety social media created for our young, and we're only now getting around to actually stopping it being used by young people. In AI, we want to ensure that we actually shape it so that it actually really makes an impact, an appropriate impact. Where is it going? Because it is the fastest developing technology in the world at the moment. It went from 0 users to 100 million users in 2 months. That's the fastest take-up of a technology ever. So this isn't hype. This is real. But we do need to know where it's going. There are a number of different ways it's beginning to branch off. And again, that's not a 6-month course. That's an information session to help you understand that. And then the last part is, how is it going to transform work? I get this question all the time. I was talking to Paul earlier. And what it's doing is it's replacing certain aspects of certain jobs. And just in the same way as we don't have a typing pool anymore, there are certain jobs aspects of which will disappear because it will be able to do them. But it still needs people to do the bit above that. So again, don't think of it in terms of replacing people. Think of it as replacing certain aspects of their roles. And certainly that's the way it's going. So that's kind of a big picture. In Trinity, we have the same problem. Although I'm a chair of AI, I'm also now Dean of Undergraduate Studies, which means I'm responsible for all of the undergraduate programs in the university. Added to that, I'm also responsible for the teaching and learning in the university, which means that all of the academics need to have the relevant skills to be able to use AI in teaching, but also to be able to detect AI in their students' work and creating those rules. And that's very difficult at the moment because the technology is evolving at such a fast pace as we're trying to make the rules. We face in Trinity the similar ideas. How do we embed AI in our teaching and learning? How do we empower academics to teach better, to be able to get their message across? But on the flip side, be able to use AI as a tool that the students can use for their own. And that's what currently what we've been rolling out. And the first thing we did was develop AI competence courses for our academics to be able to allow them, provide them with relevant tools, and then for the students themselves to be able to actually roll out competences for them so that they can use it. One of the things we get from the students all the time is, I need to know how to use it, but I need to know how to use it that I won't doing it wrong. Yeah. Or I won't be penalised for it. No one wants to be in the front page of the RTE guide as 500 people, students fined for using AI badly. So I think that what we're doing is it's still evolving, and it's a moving, and I'm a professor of AI, and I know AI really well, but even I'm still struggling to see exactly how it could. So that's normal. But what we are trying to do is be open about it. We're sharing that across all the universities, because all the universities are collaborating on this. And we can be part of that conversation in terms of how AI can be transformed.
And I don't envy you in terms of how you try and work out what students are using AI. My 2 kids are in college and they say there's an arms race at the moment. Now at interviewing we see that they're being interviewed by AI and they now have their own laptop answering the questions. So it's AI versus AI. I don't know why we're even there at this stage. If anyone hasn't used generative AI, a good starting point is it's very good at apologies. It never starts with, I'm sorry if I offended you, or uses the word but. So just throw in a good apology. You'll be amazed. You go, it's a lot better than I do. Anyway. So one last thing, Orla, before I move on to Samruddhi, is what about lifelong learning offerings in Trinity? How does that work?
Well, I think the earlier speakers, and Paul mentioned it earlier as well, here in Trinity we have focused a lot on lifelong learning over the last couple of years through some funding that we got through the Human Capital Initiative. So we have launched a range of micro-credentials here targeted for professional learners and aligned to areas of Trinity's expertise and thought leadership. So we've really looked at what we're good at, what the skills needs are, and we've matched those up. So we've about 40 micro-credentials at the moment, and our new strategic plan was launched a couple of months ago, and it very much states a longer-term commitment to developing further lifelong learning options into the future. My colleague Fiona, who's here today, will be talking a little bit more about micro-credentials a bit later, but for me, working a lot with SMEs on the enterprise engagement side, like what Natasha referred to, sometimes it is hiring in graduate talent, but sometimes it is upskilling your existing workforce and to retain your workforce. So we're hearing about that and we're responding to that and making sure that any offerings that we develop are very much aligned to what the needs of SMEs are. We have an enterprise advisory group which Enterprise Ireland sit on, and a couple of SMEs sit on as well, and we hear what's happening in your space, what your needs are, and we're taking those in and using those to inform our development of our suite of courses. But for Trinity, it's going to be a real area of focus over the next couple of years, and we plan to expand our offerings out.
Super. And Samruddhi, welcome. You are our work-ready graduate, and we want to find out a little bit more from you. So maybe talk about the background of the graduate program and also the kind of benefits you got participating in this program.
Yeah. Thank you, Peter. Good morning, everyone. I'm very delighted to be here as an alumnus of Learnovate's Work Ready graduate program. So my background is I've completed my bachelor's from India, and after that I joined as a fresher in a large multinational company, and recently I've completed my master's from University of Galway in business analytics, and now I'm currently working with an SME, which is Ray. So for me, who is an international student, this was my first job in an Irish market. So when I heard about Learnovate, it was through a former Learnovate graduate. What stood out to me was how the hiring process is. Like us graduates are expected to fit in a predefined role, but here the graduate skill set are matched to the right host organization. This was something which was extremely interesting, and the interest sparked automatically to work in such organization.
Great. And what about Vray is where you're working. So tell us a bit about the experience there. What are you doing there?
Yeah, so Ray is a product-based company. It's an Irish startup based in Ireland. So it mostly works in defense sector, and Ray works with and the good thing is it works with one of the largest aerospace and defense companies in the world, and and directly works with a lot of Ministry of Defense across Europe. So through Learnovate, I got this opportunity to work here, and Learnovate actually played a crucial role. It was like a bridge between me and Ray, who supported throughout, like having hard conversations from converting your grad role to transition into the permanent role. So I was working as a data engineer there, and now I'm transitioning to junior data scientist.
Fantastic. And one more question, remembering the audience here in front of you, because I'm going to ask you what advantages SMEs offer, and you might have a slightly partisan audience, so I'm going to lead the witness here. But what do you think SMEs offer to graduates compared to large organizations? You've joined an SME. What did you see as the benefits and the advantages of them?
Yeah, so when I started with Learnovate, since the onboarding, the structure was very clearly explained to all of the graduates along with me. What is expected from us, what are the benefits that we'll be getting. So one of the benefits was we got sponsored certifications provided, and also sponsored conferences tickets that we got to know, and a lot of regular peer sessions that with mentors and my other graduates, where we would discuss all the latest trends and all the latest AI tools that are coming into the market. Other than that, what I noticed in Ray after working in a large MNC, that you don't know where your individual work is impacted, but in in SMEs like Ray, you actually know where you are contributing and what impact it's causing. Other than that, the great thing was easy access to senior leadership. So for example, I got an opportunity to get interviewed by Financial Times, and it was recommended by my company's CEO. So such opportunities for a grad like me is actually very helpful for their career growth. And and the structure that Learnovate provided, it supported us throughout the whole one-year program. And I'm happy to say today is my one-year anniversary here at Learnovate. So yeah, I'm sharing my first-hand experience where I have experienced both large MNC and SME as well.
Congratulations. Thank you very much, Samruddhi. We're going to move on to Neil and talk about the portal. And this is relatively new. It was relatively new to me, Neil. So maybe you can give us a little bit of an understanding of this and talk about how it's a gateway to enterprise, because I think there's still a little bit of a challenge sometimes between how people feel academics and businesses come together. So maybe I'll hand over to you and you could talk a little about this, Neil.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And I'll just declare something initially. I'm not an academic. If I was a doctor, you'd be very sick before you come to me. But being in the university about 7 years, I've got very much an objective view, in terms of what the university is good at and what it's not so good at, And to your point, Peter, I think probably in the past, the university has been quite siloized, okay, and I think different things are spread across the university, like, you know, and as Orla just described eloquently earlier on, we're looking and taking a much more joined up approach, okay? So in terms of, if we distill it down in terms of what SMEs and universities and how they can engage, we've spoke already about engaging talent and nurturing talent and making it work for both parties. I think secondly, we're looking at access to expertise as well. Perhaps you may want to get access to some research. You might want to get access to some of our research output portfolio. Perhaps you might want to get access to some of our people. We have over 1,000 researchers, and perhaps you might want to get access to some of their knowledge and expertise. Third thing as well is that, you know, obviously we offer significant entrepreneurial and startup activity, which can add to the activities that SMEs might want to continue with. So just as an example, we typically do about 5 to 6 spin-outs per year, and that requires a lot of work, and it requires a lot of help and a lot of support. It requires a lot of engaging with networks, including investors, including funding agencies. And also in terms of our entrepreneurial expertise and knowledge, we want to provide an alternative skill set for both our students and our researchers. The fourth thing, and this is to the point, Peter, what we spoke about with respect to Portal, one of the things we realize is that the other thing that we need, the fourth thing we need is space and community. We need a place for this to happen. So the university in the last couple of years has developed a 3,000 square meter innovation hub over in the Grand Canal area. And what the ambition for that location is it's simple, but it's very ambitious. It's to create a place where we can accelerate the translation of research and create things that are going to make an economic and a societal impact. And I think we also have to acknowledge and realize that whereas universities and university people are very good at ideas and developing ideas and thinking about things, ultimately we need SMEs and other external stakeholders to help the university turn those wonderful ideas into something that's going to make a difference. As I say, the space and community aspect, we've only opened since November. I'd like to invite everybody to come down and have a visit and a cup of coffee with me anytime at all. It's an open, collaborative space with event space, with desk areas, with meeting rooms, with a boardroom, and over the coming months we're going to create a sort of a hive of activity. And in 4 words, it's where industry and academia will meet.
Fantastic. And Neil, firstly, you've just invited 250 people to coffee, so that's great.
Open invitation.
Make sure you take them up on this. So then just go back to a step. It's very clear in your head, but you're an SME. Try and picture, when would they even think of coming to you? Because I think this might be the thing. They're going, like, I don't even know what I don't know. Should the starting point be almost coming to a university and almost explaining who we are and how you could help? Or how is that first interaction?
Yeah, it's all about getting together. I mean, I mentioned 4 things there. I mentioned access to talent, access to expertise. I mentioned entrepreneurship. I mentioned space and community. The 5th thing as well, which is very interesting for SMEs, is getting access to research and projects. And one of the things that our unit offers, and as part of our units, to provide curated access to the innovation community in the university. So what we offer is, and we have a team, we have Audrey Crosby here and Chris Healy who's going to be here. And what we do is we will sit down and we'll understand what you want, okay? If you want access to talent and expertise, myself and Orla will come together and help you with that. If you want access to space, we can talk to you about that. If you want access to, research projects, and actually one of the daunting things for SMEs, I think, is that you come in and you hear about all these opportunities for funding and DTIFs and innovation programs and innovation partnerships, and you hear about all these opportunities, but it's very difficult to unravel and figure out what is right for you. So back to the question, Peter, I would say the first thing you do is come and talk to us and engage with us, and let's sit down, have a conversation. Let's understand what you need, where you're at, what your problems are, how can we help you, and very, very quickly. And, there's no more of this 6-week stuff where it's going to take a long time for us to come back to you, we would like to come back to you within 48 hours, 72 hours, and make sure that we can at least get an engagement going, and we will point you in the right direction.
Fantastic. Cathal, you've been very patient over there. Cathal was first here this morning, and he came from Skibbereen. So there you go. Cathal has actually got real-life example of actually working with the university. So maybe you can talk us through the journey so people can see how a lot of what we've talked so far has actually happened for yourself, Cathal.
Yeah, no problem. I suppose my kind of journey with working at university started a relatively long time ago in this space, about 20 years ago. So I grew up in a family company or a family organisation, and when I went and did my degree and I went on and did my PhD in wealth generation and SMEs, I then started interacting with universities and building innovation partnerships and various other things out of that. At that time, I suppose the most problematic thing was an actual common language between the actual two spaces. So, on one hand, traditionally you have universities chasing papers, publications, those kind of things. On the other hand, the companies or SMEs are chasing a goal. That goal is make money, basically, and bringing those two things together and getting them on the same page is a really important aspect of going forward. You're ultimately here with companies with SMEs because your purpose is to make money. So when you go back to connect that into a university, whether it's driven by productivity or technological advantage or whatever you're seeking for that actual company, it's really important to actually plug into the place that makes most advantage for you and your company. As the guys have said, there's loads of tools for doing that. I went through a number of phases in relation to it. I was founding director of Irish Manufacturing Research. And then when I came to form my own company, it was actually two of the people of common mindset who I met in Irish Manufacturing Research as board directors, that we came together to actually form the company and use the commercialisation fund out of Enterprise Ireland at the time to start the company. Peter mentioned me driving from Skibbereen. That was a very well-worn path for me every week, a couple of times a week to the lab here, where I spent a couple of days every week, where we produced 4 patents in 18 months and then spun that out as a company. So there's lots of different advantages and things that you can grab hold of. So whether it's like chasing patents for technological advantage in relation to what you're doing as a company, and using that to put yourself and your company and your framework and what you're doing on some kind of pedestal in relation to driving forward, or is it a productivity advantage that allows you to make more money out of what you're doing, whether it's AI or whether it's more hardcore hands-on engineering. There's an awful lot of opportunities buried within the university, and I say buried, traditionally more buried. What these folks are doing is bringing it more to the light, bringing it forward so you can more easily see it. 20 years ago you would have been digging a long time, but you'd be amazed by actually what's on shelves and the experience that actually currently resides inside the universities and the actual research that's being done, that if put into your hands and looked at from a commercial perspective, that you can monetize and actually bring forward and actually turn into something that generates an outcome. I suppose when I did that PhD which focused on wealth generation, basically, it really focused in on Ireland as a country is not a country of huge natural resources. We have land, we have sea, we have wind for energy. But if you start talking about SMEs and companies and businesses and actually building those up, the greatest tradition we have is the land of saints and scholars. We put huge value on education, something we always reside on and talk about in media circles and everywhere else. But it's actually, when you start to bring businesses forward, the best resource or advantage that's possibly there at your fingertips, if you can actually engage with it, is that availability of education, of a highly skilled workforce. So by coming in through these channels, you can potentially tap in to that at the highest level. Tap into it and actually push that forward on a global basis and leverage that advantage on a global basis. We constantly hear of why multinationals come to Ireland as the education basis, tax basis and education basis, on an ongoing basis. But I don't think SMEs have taken enough advantage of the fact that that education basis is there. When you're acting local, you can tap into that at the very highest level. And that, I suppose, as our company is what we've done is we've constantly resourced taking resources of PhDs, postdocs, kind of through funding mechanisms out of the university. We work with them for a year first within the university framework, and then they come out and work for Nexalus. So we're constantly developing patents and IP, etc., for companies like Dell, HPE, Intel, and beyond. And our key resources are people and that education process. Our program they've gone through, facilitated by Trinity here at the moment, but I've also worked with other universities around the country as well.
And Cathal, I'm sure there were lots of mistakes along the way, lots of lessons learned.
Loads.
Just one for the audience here that you would say, so if somebody is going through the journey you're going through, what tip would you give them that you wish someone had told you?
Spend a lot of time looking for the person you want to work with. Spend a great deal of time on that. It's an interview process. It's not the first person you come across, basically. You have to remember they want to work with you as much as you want to work with them. So it's not running in to actually grab the first person that comes along, and that makes sense. Spend time looking within the ecosystem. You have much better access or framework than has ever been had there before in relation to finding that person. Find someone. You have to find someone who's interested enough to come down and spend time sitting in your company and learning what you're about. And you, in turn, go to their lab, etc., and learn what they're about. It's a protracted interview process. You go into that and you spend 2 or 3 years in a program of work trying to get something out of it. It's super important that you understand that you're on the same page, basically, in relation to the outcomes and framing out those outcomes and what you want out of it. Peter again mentioned one of the things I did early on in my first innovation partnerships is I regularly turned up here at the lab at 9 o'clock in the morning to see if other people had turned up at 9 o'clock in the morning. So that it was you know, at the early stage when you had undergrads and postdocs, etc., working in a program, it was kind of, yeah, you know, we're on a mission to actually create something or do something, and you know, normal business hours apply, basically. So having been in that world myself, I know that that's not always the case. So it is really, really important to spend a lot of time figuring out and finding that correct person to work with.
Yeah, I'm not saying everybody has to get up at 5:30 in the morning to get into work for 9, but I'm conscious Trinity is being very kind to host today, but do we have a comment from any of the universities? I know we've all the 7 in the room. Is there anyone who'd like to have a comment from their own university? This is your platform. Has anyone got a hand up there? Yes, here. And maybe just introduce yourself, please.
Hi, everyone. My name is Caroline Pierce. I work as the Business Development Manager in the Careers Network in UCD. So I just want to thank really the panellists today, and a special thanks to Orla of the Career Service in Trinity. Very much just echoing everything she said, that we're more than happy to work with SMEs, to start the conversation and to have ongoing collaboration. So there's no need to come to us with a fully formed idea. We're always very happy to just start talking.
Super. Anyone else have a comment? Yes, behind you there.
Hello, Grania North, Workplace Manager, UCC Career Services. So just a point that was raised already, I suppose, about SMEs coming in relation to the one job. And it's that kind of maybe endless debate versus big versus small company, multinationals versus SMEs, which you see from both the employer and the student side. Just to say they can both exist and have their place and coexist in harmony. And I suppose just in my role as placement manager, we particularly look at placement data. So I work for CUBS, the Cork University Business School. So we analyse every year our placement companies and look where people go. And with a cohort of students of about 700 from undergraduate and masters, accounting, finance, food, marketing, management, our stats for the last couple of years are 68 to 71%, depending, are a single job coming in to fill that quota of that 600 or 700 coming. So every single job that comes in is very much of value. So, you know, equally, we're very much open to dealing with SMEs. And I'll just give one example. There was a bakery in Cork, it's a family-run bakery. A new generation took over that then wanted to become more involved with the university. They came in really not knowing where to go. It's somebody I met in person. We worked with them. We initially agreed to one placement with one cohort. Then that led to them coming to our networking fair. We had an employer partnership forum where they came. They were looking for advice on new technology, where they went to a specialist department. it's now led to us being invited out there, having a tour. This year they had a placement role with about 80 or 90 students. They said they couldn't believe they had that much interest in the company, and equally they provide us with employer testimonials, and we have like a very good working relationship, and that they want to build that. So it just starts with that connection and conversation. I think somebody mentioned earlier on in relation to the skills, just knowing what that person wants and listening to what they and working with that. So and just to plug, we're www.ucc.ie/careers. We equally have that careers board, and we're very open to SMEs. So.
There you go. Even universities now are selling themselves. That's what I like to see. Is there a question from anyone from an SME in the audience who's of anything they've heard so far they'd like to clarify or have a question on? Don't be shy. Yes, here we go. Here, the gentleman here. Yep, microphone coming to you now. And then we'll take one from online. Grace is going to get me a question from the online audience.
Hi, my name is Brian O'Neill. Our company is Altuent. We work a lot with the large multinationals helping to create and curate content. And our challenges at the moment, obviously given generative AI, agentic AI, is to upskill our workforce. But also I see that there's a need for a new role, a new type of role that's going to emerge, which is a cross between, say, technical communications and data management.
Yeah.
And, looking into the future, we need to shape that role, and we need to see graduates coming out of universities into that role. So, and we do work closely with some of the universities in Cork. The second sort of challenge that's coming for us quite quickly is working with these large multinationals. We get access to POCs quite regularly, where we're bringing our expertise to help them leverage the technologies that are there, improve efficiency and whatever. But sometimes we're lacking key skills for that POC, and we need, proof of concept. And we need to be able to reach out to somebody then to touch base and access those skills in a collaboration with the client and ourselves and the university. Those two things, how do the panel see those two things evolving?
Who would like to take that?
I might take the first one, and maybe Vinny can come in on this as well, because it's something we're very conscious of. You can probably understand, you can appreciate with an undergraduate curriculum, it's kind of fixed over the 4 years, but there are flexible parts within that, and we have and I'm sure most of the other universities do, we have a lot of industry advisory where we're listening to what you're saying about the type of skills and the new types of roles that are coming down the line, and the types of skills and competencies that our graduates will need to have going out. So what we do is we bring those back. I actually sit within the teaching and learning division of Trinity, working very closely with Vinny. So for us, the skills, the careers, the employability of our graduates is very much aligned to curriculum, and we take views of employers and bring those in to inform curriculum. And back to what my colleague from UCC was saying, that one of the ways we can bring that in a very real time is that increasingly all the universities are building a lot more work-based learning into their courses, where we have the kind of the deep knowledge and expertise, but then that opportunity to actually work on projects with companies. And increasingly, and we do that extensively across our School of Computer Science and Engineering, with Vinny kind of led a lot on, but we're also doing that across a range of other schools now, because for so many disciplines, this is essential for all our graduates, not just those coming from certain areas. So we are bringing that on board, bringing employers in to work on those work-based projects, work-based challenges, getting the students to work on those. So we're bringing those skills directly into the curriculum and really getting the students to apply them at an early stage. And then my team and I can then work with the students when they're graduating to say, well, how can you articulate that out for that new role that's just been created? How can you articulate how you can apply what you've learned here in Trinity to that?
And just a quick answer for this, Vinny.
Just on the proof of concept thing. One of the ways in which that can be addressed is through the research centres within the universities. So for example, I led the ADAPT Research Centre, which is the AI centre for the country, and we regularly had SMEs coming to us with a gap. We would kind of say, well, we want to develop something in this, we don't have the skill, and we could collaboratively develop it with them. Obviously, the first concern was always IP. We were able to deal with that, and Neil's part of that. And then they were able to then apply that into, and it's nearly, as you said, it was nearly always a large multinational that we're building toward. Well, frequently what happened also in that situation is the multinational recognized that actually the SME was able to leverage the expertise of a big university. So all of a sudden there was a lot more trust and longevity. And also frequently what happened then is that as that relationship built, the next project and the next project and the next project. So, we've frequently done that. I think there's something like 250 of such collaborations over the last 10 years. But that's, and I'm only just talking about there as an AI example, but this is broader. There are research units that Neil connects to right across the university, and there's those ones also in other universities as well. So we've kind of got very used to doing this, both in terms of being able to apply the expertise, being able to ensure that we can understand the legal frameworks that's required for this, because that's everyone worries about, and go further. So I'll pass over to Neil.
Yeah, just one very quick thing, okay? In your particular case, and just to stress this, is that there's a spectrum of engagement that the university can have with SME, okay? So whether it's to students, or it could be a light touch, for example, a consultancy engagement in your case, where we provide a managed consultancy service where you can get access to a researcher or a couple of researchers, to solve your specific problem. And that's even before you might engage in a more extensive research collaboration, so there's a spectrum. Okay.
Super. So look, we've only scratched the surface here. We've got 5 incredible panelists up here. Please grab them at the break, ask them as many questions as you can. And when you're networking with other people, your opening question is just, what's your favorite box set to watch at the moment? That's how you jump into your first conversation, and then you can get through all this. And we want to hear lots of great advice afterwards. So the good news is you now have 20 minutes or break. For those of you online, you can grab your own cup of coffee, or we'll send one out to you, and we'll see you back in 20 minutes. Thank you very much to the panel. Thank you very much, guys. When we talk about looking up more, I just reminding me holding this. This is the laser pointer, the guy who created eBay. The first thing he ever sold online was the laser pointer, but it was broken, and he felt a bit guilty, so he sent the guy an email going, "Just to let you know, that thing I sold you, that laser pointer, is actually a broken laser pointer." And the guy responded, "That's fine. I collect broken laser pointers." And that's how eBay began, because he realized if somebody would buy that, well, there's something for everybody out there. So that idea of chatting to different people, you never know what's going to go. So welcome back. Our next section is about pathways for upskilling and reskilling staff, using 2 approaches that you may or may not be familiar with. So we're going to start with 2 short presentations, and then we'll have another panel. I'd like to introduce our 2 presenters who will come up one after the other. The first will be Fiona Gamble, Project Manager of MicroCredentials at Trinity Careers and Development, and she'll be followed by Grace Edge, who's Head of Skills and Lifelong Learning in the IUA, who will tell you about the recognition of prior learning. So first of all, can you give a round of applause to Fiona? Thank you.
Thanks very much, Peter, and delighted to be here to talk to you all today about micro-credentials. We've heard some wonderful insights this morning, and thanks to the speakers, Paul, Peter, Natasha, and our wonderful panel. And I think we all share a common understanding of the challenge ahead and the importance of building the right skills for the future. So just to focus us just a little further, 2 very important points. Employers expect 39% of workers' core skills to change by 2030. Pretty scary. That's from the World Economic Forum, the Future of Jobs Insight Report. And secondly, a comment from our own national skills strategy. The labour market in Ireland is changing rapidly, and the demand for upskilling from both employers and employees is high. So the higher education sector has a unique opportunity to meet this challenge head on. And one of the ways we've done this is through the development of micro-credentials, learning opportunities that can make a significant and very important difference in the SME sector. So let me tell you a little bit about the MicroCreds project. So the MicroCreds project, it's a 14.3 million project, and it's been funded by the Human Capital Initiative project, which we've heard some about already today. Its goal is to transform lifelong learning across the Irish universities and to better enable organisations such as people in this room to acquire the skills they need for the future. And the goal really, I suppose, is to ensure that companies can remain competitive, relevant, profitable, and to drive growth. So the project is led by the Irish Universities Association in partnership with the 7 partner universities, with TUD joining us in 2025. Our vision is clear. It's to empower lifelong learning in Ireland by reimagining the learner's relationship with higher education. And we do this through agile, accessible and bite-sized courses called MicroCredential. It makes learning more flexible and more future-focused. On this slide, you can see the 7 partner universities, including TU also. Each one of these institutions has developed a portfolio of micro-credentials that align with areas of high demand for skills. But also they align to deep areas of expertise within research within the university. And this ensures that the offerings are both relevant to industry, but also grounded in academic excellence. So what is a micro-credential? I'm going to start on the top right, the purple circle. So one of the most important things I can tell you about micro-credentials is that they are accredited. And what this means is that they've gone through the full university structures for approval. Accreditation guarantees that each programme is designed around very clear learning objectives, and they're assessed rigorously. And I know how rigorously they're assessed because I completed one myself within the last 12 months. This ensures the best possible outcomes, but more to the point for the people in this room, it ensures the best possible chance of impact in the workplace. So just to point out a couple of other things, accreditation means it brings credits. So the credits involved here for these micro-credentials are ECTS credits. That's the European Credit Transfer System. It means you can carry those credits in theory anywhere within Europe, and also it may be potential to accumulate those credits or stack those credits into higher awards. Also to mention that the micro-credentials we're talking about here are pretty much nearly all at postgraduate level. There are a few at level 7 and level 8, but they're pretty much at that postgraduate level. So that's where we're positioned in the market. So moving around, our micro-credentials are future fit and industry informed. So any successful micro-credential must be focused on skills demands, and this is where Natasha has brought up all of the key points. It has to be areas of relevance and things that can be valuable to SMEs such as yourselves. Quality. Okay, so from a quality perspective, these courses they're delivered by subject matter experts. These are often academics and practitioners who are at the cutting edge of research in their fields. And learners benefit from this deep expertise and the latest thinking. In fact, on one of our micro-credentials in motion picture engineering, we actually have an Oscar winner. I kid you not, it's on the technical end of things, but they are generally have a high level of expertise in their areas. Flexible. Okay, our courses are designed around busy schedules. Our learners are generally mid-career in Trinity. I can tell you the average age of our learner is 42. They're juggling busy lives, families, hobbies, you name it, career progression. So life is busy, so we need to work around that. So our courses are generally blended or online. So this means there might be an in-person session on a Saturday or something like that, and the other sessions will be online. Sometimes at lunchtime and sometimes in the evening where possible, just to give people, I suppose, that kind of bandwidth and to make it accessible. So the important point here is that we meet the learners where they are at. Okay, our micro-credentials, they're short and they're highly targeted. So they're typically between 5 and 12 weeks. This makes them, I suppose, importantly, it makes them digestible, practical, and I suppose not so scary. A lot of people coming back to education, particularly at postgraduate, I couldn't be ready for a master's, I couldn't do that. So this is a way to bring people back into postgraduate education, get access to that expertise, and who knows where it can go from there. So just a quick view on the benefits for the employers, and some of these have been mentioned already with some of the other speakers. So there are several, and they are significant. So the obvious ones were close skill gaps and improve enterprise productivity. critical in the, I suppose, competitive marketplace that you guys are operating in. Second, they enable organisations to meet emerging needs and to respond to new trends quickly. Speed and agility is key. Career development and progression for employees, which is critical for building a motivated and future, there we go, I suppose a motivated and future-ready workforce. Another key benefit is improved staff retention and recruitment. And we've recently been speaking to an SME who says, I can't compete with the Googles, I can't compete with the techs, but I'm looking for the same graduates. So they've come to us, how can I, send 10 people a year on a micro-credential, it would make it attractive, it's university education. So those kinds of things are, I suppose, are becoming increasingly important. Micro-credentials can also be part of the portfolio of the existing training and development within an organisation, so it could complement what's already in place. It doesn't have to replace. And finally, I suppose the potential is for an immediate impact. So these short focused courses often have assignments that are work-based, or the person is using their own, I suppose, organisation as a test bed for whatever assessment goes on within the micro-credential. So just to give you a few examples, I'm not going to go through them all, but you can see here they cover a wide range of areas, from leadership and innovation to sustainability, data analytics and public policy. And I suppose the key point to make here is that there's diversity and relevance in these offerings. They're designed to meet real industry needs and provide learners with practical, future-focused skills, just brass tacks, I suppose. Okay, so next let's have a look at the learner fee supports, and I think probably close to the hearts of many employers. So there are several ways a learner can fund their micro-credential, and one is self-funded, and we do get many learners who come and pay entirely for themselves, and I suppose they're investing in themselves and in their own development. Employer supports, we often get partial or full, as many organisations see the value in upskilling their teams, so even if they don't have a training budget available for full funding, they say, well look, maybe I'll give you partial. SkillNet Ireland provides funding for enterprise-led training, and we've already mentioned the SkillNet networks here today. There's 70 of them across the country. Again, it might be worth connecting with your local SkillNet that's relevant to your sector and finding out if there is some funding available there. It can be 30%, 50%, I believe sometimes even more. Springboard Plus, also a government HEA initiative, also has a number of micro-credentials that are considerably funded. So we did have a learner fee subsidy running until the 31st of October this year, which was absolutely hugely successful and opened the doors for many people who just couldn't afford the fees, and we're hoping that there will be some further news on direct learner support directly from the HEA as well. So I suppose the message is here that there's a cost. There are multiple ways to make micro-credentials accessible and affordable. Okay, just to back the truck up a little bit on how we engage with enterprise. I suppose being a university, it's very important for us to tell you how we are reaching out and how these micro-credentials are industry informed. So take you through a few of them. We've mentioned already most academics in their research fields have extensive networks which we make use of wholly and happily to develop our micro-credentials. And we also have our industry advisory groups which bring together academia and people from key sectors. We also participate in the MicroCreds Innovate series, which is run by the IUA MicroCreds project. And in that, we come together with academia and sector-specific people to talk about those sector-specific challenges. So those have been very successful as well. Over recent years, we've worked closely with SkillNet networks. From the Trinity perspective, we've worked closely with the Green Tech and the Creative and Cultural SkillNets, and we look forward, I suppose, to building on those networks further in the future. To stay connected with emerging skills, of course, we work closely with Natasha and the Regional Skills Fora. Natasha leading the charge here in Dublin, but as well as the other regional networks, regional skills networks across the country. We also stay close to, I suppose, the reports produced by Enterprise Ireland, by IDA, by Europe, by any intelligence that we can get, we will also digest and I suppose, fit into the equation. And finally, and I just mentioned to somebody there on the break, we do make it a priority to be at as many events as possible, such as this one where we can actually talk face to face with people. We talk to our learners also after their courses, we bring them into events, so we make it really our business to make sure we're talking to everybody involved. So let's just have a quick look at the journey so far. Oh, yeah. Okay, brilliant. So just where we've come with, I suppose, our numbers, we have 20,000 learners, 600 courses across all the universities. But you know what, we've spoken a lot about our growth and our journey so far, so let's go straight to, I think, the voices of the people who have been on our courses, and just to take you through. We have Damien Walsh, who did our course, Driving Performance with AI and Analytics, and just to paraphrase some of his kind of comments here, appealed to me with busy work and personal life, course content was relevant and practical, I'm currently on my 3rd MicroCred. We have Barry McCarran, core retrofit, he did finance for non-finance. He again wanted to cut through the noise, tell me exactly what I need, short and focused. The whole experience was lean and to the point. Lorena Pereira, who's actually done 2 micro-credentials with Trinity in the last 18 months. She was looking for practical insights to help shape sustainability initiatives, and also just wanted to get that knowledge and expertise from a respected institution. I suppose it's just that relevance and validation. And finally, we have Sharon Morrissey, based in Cork, and she's founder of Sharon Morrissey Mediation Services, and she wanted a new skill to add in to her current offering. So that was, I suppose, innovation from her organisational point of view. So just finally then, to connect, I'm here today, and there's some colleagues around the room. I can see the project leads, that definitely from UCD and UCC. We're all very happy to talk to you about any courses. You can go to the microcreds.ie, which is a wonderful portal where you can get access to all of our partners' courses, and you can search there. Also, please feel free to reach out to us through our own university website. So thank you, and I think I'm handing you over to Grace.
Fiona, do the little clicky. Thank you very much. I'm going to hire this up inconspicuously. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Grace Edge. I'm the Interim Head of Lifelong Learning and Skills at the Irish Universities Association, and I'm going to take you through just very briefly, or reacquaint you with as well, for those who already know a bit about the recognition of prior learning, or RPL as we call it for short. We've done a lot of talking this morning about skills needs evolving at pace, and I think the challenge is not just about how we open up and expand upskilling and reskilling provision in higher ed. It's also a challenge of how we recognise the existing skills, experience and knowledge that the workforce already have, and RPL is a tool that can help us do just that. So RPL, from I suppose the higher education perspective, we would call it a process through which learning gained outside the classroom can be recognised toward a programme or award. And that learning might come from work experience, industry training, volunteering, community involvement, wider life experience. I think the great thing with RPL is that it recognises that the workplace is, in and of itself, a really rich and valuable site of learning. So all the learning, we know we don't have the dibs on all the learning in higher education. Learning's happening out there in the world, in your workplaces, every day. So RPL can be, a practical way that can give value to the learning that people already have, the things they already know and can do. So the wonderful thing with that is it can avoid unnecessary duplication, and it can open up new entry and progression routes into and through higher education. I think many people who've been through the RPL process will talk about it as something very empowering, and I think there's something very personal about that. Having your skills and knowledge seen and valued is in itself a very empowering process So again, by giving that value to what people already know and can do, we're helping people to build on the learning they already have. And that can be a bridge to new learning. So again, making sure that people aren't starting from square one, they're not starting from scratch. So why does this matter for business? In Ireland, about 1 in 2 adults in the workforce don't have a third level qualification. And I think that doesn't reflect lack of skill or lack of expertise or lack of ambition. It often just reflects life circumstances, perhaps, and disparities in opportunity. There's also something wider at play, and actually we see this in the OECD Strategic Skills Outlook that came out last week, was talking very much about disparities in access to upskilling and reskilling opportunities, and the challenge that we all face here in Ireland and in Europe in particular around this. And what that's kind of saying is that this differential access to upskilling and reskilling opportunities, it's limiting personal potential, but it's also really constraining business growth and economic growth as well. And it can also mean that the investment going into skills can benefit the few rather than the many, because I think we've even heard today how the same people are coming back to upskill and reskill, and I think we really need to be alert to that in higher education and more broadly, that we're opening up opportunities to everyone who can benefit, and RPL is one way that we can do this. So it can help meet skills needs faster because it starts with what people already know and can do. It can widen the talent pool, and it can help retain talent by ensuring that development opportunities are based on demonstrated capabilities and not just qualifications on that piece of paper. But look, it's also important to say, I think, that RPL can be for everyone, people with high levels of qualifications, lower levels, and everything in between. In practical terms, how does all of this work? Well, look, RPL can support learners and employers in a number of different ways. So I think the way that may be most relevant to the people here today is that it can help people access entry into programmes. So Fiona did a great job there of outlining micro-credentials and how they work. So if you take a micro-credential that's tagged at, say, level 9, that postgraduate level, normally the entry requirement to get into that micro-credential will be a level 8. So you need to have your degree to get into a micro-credential. But with RPL, and I'm pleased to say, we really see it expanding across our programmes and courses in higher education. You can get into that programme if you can demonstrate relevant workplace or life experience. Again, you'll demonstrate it to a certain academic standard, but you can use that learning and experience you have if you don't have the level 8. It can also support things like advanced entry into programmes. So for those longer programmes that happen over a few years, maybe you start further along in that process, or perhaps it can help you with credit or exemptions from within programmes. So again, it might be a module. You may already have the learning and not need to undertake that module again. So I think the key points are that it's always about demonstrating the learning that you have that's relevant to the programme. It can help save time and money. Now, my colleagues in higher ed mightn't be so happy about that, but it can be very useful in that way. And it also allows the learner to focus on the new learning, the learning that's genuinely needed, and not kind of going over the stuff that you already have. So look, just to close, I just want to call out priorlearning.ie as one place you can start if you want to find out more about RPL. It brings together guidance, examples and wider contacts across the university sector if you want to get in touch with people from all of the various institutions that are offering RPL. I'm pleased to say we have some fantastic people in the room with us today. Ciara Staunton, who is the project lead, the national project lead for RPL. Give us a wave, Ciara, so everyone can see you, so you can bring your queries to Ciara there. We also have my colleague Suzanne Golden doing brilliant work in the University of Galway, expanding opportunities there for learners, and Mike Noonan from CISC, who himself used RPL So look, just to close, I just re-emphasise again that RPL is a really practical way to leverage the experience that you already have, maybe you as an individual or you as an SME owner within your workplace, and it can really help you or your workforce to get to the new skills that are needed and to meet the challenges that are there for you. So look, thank you for listening. Any queries or questions, I will be floating around, and I'm sure we'll have a great chat with colleagues on the panel next. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd now like to invite our panellists, Marie Walsh, partner at HDF in Dublin, Mike Noonan, who just mentioned there from CISC in Limerick, and Suzanne Golden, who's the RPL project lead at University of Galway. So as they say in cooking shows, here's some we prepared earlier. So these are people who've actually gone through some of these programs or who know more about them. So Marie, we'll start with yourself. So welcome.
Thanks very much, Peter, and thanks for the invitation.
No, it's all. Look, we've heard about MicroCreds, that now we want to kind of understand a real life example. What attracted you? Tell us a little bit about your journey of MicroCreds.
Okay, thanks. So maybe just a quick introduction to myself first, as you said. Marie Walsh, I work with HDF IP specialists. I'm a patent attorney, and in my a while back, I did my undergraduate degree in industrial chemistry and have been working along the way in the IP services, which is in a general legal services, but also very much interfaced with SMEs and science and technology, as you know. So, to bring to your question, with that context in mind, the micro-credential was offered as...
Feel free to tell that.
Sorry. The micro-credential course in mentoring for equality, diversity and inclusion was being offered at Maynooth University with Professor Katrina O'Sullivan's team there, and it really, really drew me in. I had, during COVID, recognised an opportunity to upscale already in coaching. That was more in terms of myself recognising that I was in a very diverse workspace, both in terms of the young minds and the not so young minds, of which I class myself in the latter category, and different communication styles. And ultimately that was the starting point for recognising that I need to be aware of my assumptions as to what is clear and what is not in the workplace when I communicate and when I'm working with a very diverse group of people. And it doesn't help anybody, SMEs or no matter what organisation you're in, if there is a lack of clarity and someone is floundering. What on earth did she mean by that? So I'm left, some people need more defined boundaries, and my communication style, I realised, might not be a fit for everybody. So I recognised the need to upskill, so that was step one. And step two then was, and this comes back to what Fiona was saying there in the presentation. In fact, in many instances, I'm really going to echo much of what Fiona said, because Maynooth has a particular skill set and expertise in the area of, it's not exclusive, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that, but there was this micro-credential on offer that matched with the growing excellence in the teaching around mentoring for equality, diversity and inclusion, combined with an outreach looking for volunteers to mentor on the STEM Passport for Inclusion programme. And of course you could volunteer on that separately as without any micro-credential, but the micro-credential was on offer, and I felt that it would give me a more structured or broader understanding that I could bring back into the workplace. And not only that, but there was also an opportunity to mentor within the industry at large, within the IP industry, to bring in a more diverse workforce and to be able to communicate that that was possible for any background. And the micro-credential really opened my eyes to my own assumptions and enormously helped in building not just a skill set, but also a confidence in that skill set to be able to go forward with bringing that into real life. So out of that, I had the skills to step into a co-lead mentoring and setting up a program with Adapt Legal for the European side to try and make a more diverse entry point. And not just that, coming in is one thing, staying in the industry is another thing. And that's where I felt there was going to be a huge help with the micro-credential.
So you've told us about it and the skills you've got from it, but maybe just for employers out there and for people looking at this, how do you balance this with full-time work? Because this is fairly intense and you're working at the same time. So how does that work?
Well, much as Fiona had said, the micro-credential is very targeted, quite specific. Nobody wants to, I think somebody on the slide used the word fluff. Nobody wants to fluff about. You want to know, what do I need to know? Yes, I'm time poor. I might be doing this on Saturday evening after dinner or Sunday afternoon before I head back into Monday morning when I've got some clear headspace. For me, that's where I found my space was, because yes, okay, instead of watching that box set or Netflix, I could pick that up at 8 o'clock at night or whatever. So you just pick your spots, your hour here and there, but it was entirely manageable. The other thing, I suppose, with the micro-credentials is they are a short space of time. You've got 3 or 4 months. You say, look, I can do this for a period of time. And that's how that worked, entirely manageably, I found.
Fantastic, fantastic. Now, Mike, you're on the RPL side, and I think micro-credentials, I would think, are slightly easier for people to understand. It feels like a bite-sized time commitment. But talk about a little bit about your learning journey and going back to college with RPL.
So I'll just give you a bit of background to myself. So my name is Mike Noonan. I'm a health and safety manager with CISC. So my background would be, before I got into health and safety, would have been, I was academic. Our college, I would have gone and done health and safety. I would have done business management, supervisory management, event management, and aside from that, then real world experience. I come from a farming background, so I would have done farming all my life. I would have done charity work. I would have had worked in factories. So through the RPL, it's asking for real life and experiences. So I was able to draw on what I've learned from college and my real life experience and use that combination to apply for this course. The course I'm doing is a Master's in Agri-Innovation with Galway University, and to go from there then I just built on top of that. And
how did you hear about it? Because I'd say some people be interested in how did you even hear about the course in the first point? Were you actively looking for it, or?
So I was actively looking for a course. Like, I'm a lifelong learner. I've always either did a part-time course or I've went to college to do some sort of training to upskill myself. So I was actively looking to do a course that interested me, and I just happened to come along and see the Agri course in University of Galway, and through the process of reading the brief, I was able to relate to what they were asking me, and I was able to apply for it, and I applied for it through Springboard, and I was able to put my CV, cover letter, transcripts, all the information that they were asking for towards the application, and I was able to outline my life experiences and my qualifications.
And then finally then, the actual learning itself and the program of learning, how has it helped you and benefited the employer?
So it's taken everything I've learned to date, and I didn't have to learn from scratch, as it was mentioned there a while ago, and take everything I've learned and built on and take it up another level. It benefited myself and the employer, because as a health and safety manager, advisor, I'm always looking to see where we can benefit others by putting in a system that can put a safety procedure in place and benefit my skills and the employer.
Okay, fantastic. And Suzanne, you're the RPL project lead at University of Galway, so maybe in terms of the business owners in the room, how would this work without maybe disrupting their day-to-day operations?
Yeah, well, of course, for many SMEs, there's a significant challenge in releasing staff for formal learning opportunities. And I suppose RPL is a mechanism to help address that, because it starts really from recognising the skills and knowledge that employees already have, rather than focusing on the new learning necessarily at the beginning. And through RPL, skills that employees already have, and many of them acquired in the workplace over a long duration of years, can be assessed and recognised. And that's done without necessarily people having to leave their day-to-day jobs or disrupting the roles that they already have. So that assessment of their learning is done alongside while their work continues. And the benefits then for SMEs are very clear. So first of all, there's a faster progression to qualifications. There's minimal disruption of productivity. There is also, I suppose, a reduced cost to that upskilling endeavour. And I suppose also probably equally as importantly is that the workforce then feels genuinely valued for the experience and the expertise that it already has.
So kind of builds on the retention of the employees.
Absolutely.
And what about kind of reskilling staff with, say, new or emerging roles? Is that something RPL can help with?
Yeah, I think so. For a lot of these new and emerging roles, there's already individuals in companies, in SME companies, larger companies, that have significant transferable skills. So RPL is a process to evidence that learning that is already there. And it means then that individuals don't necessarily have to start at the very beginning of a learning process, that they can just focus on what the new learning is. And I think that's what's really beneficial in terms of RPL, in terms of what the value add that it can bring to that upskilling endeavour that companies are currently going through at the moment.
And final question for now, the application process itself, well, what does that even look like? Because I'm trying to work out that you've got people with these real-life skills. Mike talked about kind of farming skills, charity skills. How are you actually annotating these on an application form?
Yeah, and it's great to have Mike here with us, because he's a real example of having gone through the process. And really, I guess, the start of the RPL journey often starts with a conversation, and that's how Mike and I would have engaged. A conversation to look at the learning endpoint that an individual has in mind. And then it's really about articulating all of that really rich learning that individuals may have acquired through their careers, and mapping that to various different criteria that might relate to either the entry to a programme of study, or that might relate to certain learning outcomes within a programme of study. So I think the key thing is to articulate is that RPL is generally a supported process by a university. Individuals generally aren't left on their own to navigate the RPL process. So usually learners come to have this conversation, and then they go about gathering evidence that articulates the learning that they have already acquired, and putting that together in a format that can be assessed and viewed by an institution. The assessment process is done by academic staff of a university, and then that outcome then is either entry to a programme of study, or it could be advanced entry to a programme, or, as Grace outlined before, it could be module exemptions from some parts from an individual programme. So I think it's a very much a staged process, Peter, that learners are brought through and supported on that journey as well.
Right. I'd love to know if online, if there's any questions. Grace, if there's anything online, but I'll come back to you in a second, Grace. Just for both Marie and Mike, one tip you give to someone who's thinking of either doing a micro-credential or RPL, what would you recommend they do it, and if so, why?
Yeah, well, certainly I would, because I think it's a great way of just tapping into whatever is your particular area of interest in that very manageable way, and just expanding out from what you thought you knew, and maybe having some space for self-reflection. And full disclosure, we're actually classmates. We just realised fully as we were miking
if we'd
up
known
there.
that conflict of interest,
There is no conflict of interest. I wasn't
right,
using the RPL programme. But I think it echoes something that Fiona mentioned as well, which was that actually doing a micro-credential in itself is a value. But in fact, that was about 2 years ago for me, and it did prompt me then to realise, hey, I can manage it. Maybe I look for something else that's also of interest a period of time later. So it builds on that piece as well.
So Mike, lifelong learning and lifelong friends, Mike, is that right?
That's it. That's it. I would recommend anyone doing it because we've all the skills and we've all the qualifications. For me, and if people resonate with me, that this can come together and take you to a new level. Even if you don't think it will take you to a new level, and I would definitely recommend anyone or everyone do it because, as I said, the qualification is there, and we have the life skills and we have the qualification. So
fantastic.
It's nice to put it all together.
Thank you. Is there a question there, Grace, from anyone online, or you have a microphone there? Is there anything, or you'd even ask around this whole area?
I'd like to ask Mike about just going back to that bit about the process, because I think that can often be for RPL the bit that maybe people are a little bit fearful of, like how do I know what I know? How do I represent what I know? Could you tell us a little bit about what the process was like in University of Galway?
So in the application, is it?
Yeah, just the kind of the real nuts and bolts of what the application was like, if you can remember that far back.
So the nuts and bolts of it was basically I was asked to put my CV together, put as much detail into it, and come up with a cover letter to reflect that, along with my life experiences as well. And I was able to submit that to the college for review, and we went through the process and we expanded on it where I might have needed to expand a bit more on, and I was able to put that whole application together, and the whole process it came together nicely. So.
And were you surprised by anything in it when you looked at it?
Yeah, actually I was very surprised. Did a lot of things. Been around the block. What was I surprised? I was surprised I was actually doing a master's, because I've done a degree, I've done my diplomas, and I've always learnt different skills as a health and safety advisor. I've instructorships, but to take that and put it all together into a master's kind of really surprised me. Like as an entrepreneur as well, and doing the agri-innovation, I was able to expand and focus on the couple of businesses I have, and I was able to take them to a new level, as I say. So I can, at the minute now, I'm actually hoping to expand onto another business. So I'm looking to break into health and safety training consultancy. So add that to my list of small businesses that I've gone on the side. Fantastic. So it does really help.
I think it's interesting because I remember years ago when I was coaching somebody who was interviewing and asking them what their strengths were, and a lot of people are really poor at talking about what they do, but when you start asking them what would your mother say about you, what would your best friend say about you, what would your colleagues say about you, suddenly they're telling all these great things. And I think we probably all know people out there who mightn't have a formal degree but are incredibly capable, and it just sounds like this is something that would be really beneficial to them, so we should probably spread the word on that. One question, if we've time, one more question for the audience. There's a question here. Did you? No? No, sorry. Was there anyone who had a question? Yes, one here, and then we'll...
Thanks. This might be more specific to the actual micro-credential, but one, were they fully remote, and did you find it more beneficial than in person? Because I often found that remote courses are quite challenging at times. And then the second question is, are the assignments applied to your own organisation, or are they quite general?
So first, Marie, is it online versus, is online a challenge for you versus in person?
You're right in that it isn't the same sense of I suppose, being able to go up to somebody over the cup of coffee at the break and be able to share if there's pain over assignments or get clarification. But at the same time then you have the upside of not having the travel time and trying to coordinate who's where if you're in a busy household. So I suppose on balance I found that the upside won out effectively because you had a bit more of that time back, and we're all getting a lot more used to being able to engage online anyway. So I found that okay. Assignment wise then, look, yes, that's the downside and the ugly side of the pain point of, look, I want to get this, I really want to come out the other end having got this skill set and qualification as well. And usually as an adult learner you've got a bit of a means to an end, like Mike just said, looking at whether it's setting up another business or as another stepping stone to getting somewhere. You pretty much have a bit of a notion that you mightn't have verbalised to anyone else, so that helps to get over the pain of the assignments themselves, I found.
So were they tailored just for the rest, for the online? Right, were they tailored to your organisation?
Typically, yes, absolutely. Very much draw on your own experience and something that you can dig in a little bit. If there is any element of research, it is very much focused on your organisation. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, look, there's loads of people in the audience as well here. So thank you to Fiona and Grace, who's talked about micro-credentials and RPL, and to Marie, Mike, and Suzanne. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks very much.
You can take it, please.
Thank you.
Our last session of the morning, we promised to get you out in time, is about widening the talent pool, broadening the scope of your search for graduate talent and considering new possibilities that you maybe weren't as suited to SMEs. With us, I'd like to invite onto stage our Anna Boda, Programme Manager of Employers for Change, Aoife Nickena, UCD graduate and WAM programme grad, Jennifer Cleary, Head of International at the Irish Universities Association, and Helen McMahon, Skills Policy Strategic Partnership at EI. Welcome, everybody.
Thank you.
I'm going to start with Anna. Tell me about Employers for Change. Tell the audience what Employers for Change do.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm sorry, nobody asked me, but as a really big fan of lifelong learning, I just want to emphasize how important it is. Also, as well, we will be talking about diversity, and I think it really empowers people from different backgrounds. If I may say, you might hear that I'm not born in Ireland, and lifelong learning, I think, is really exceptional in Ireland opportunities. And with that in mind, so Employers for Change is an organization funded by the government, by the Department of Children, Disability and Equality, and our main purpose is really to empower employers across Ireland to be confident around hiring people with disabilities and retaining talent. So think about us as your partner in your disability inclusion journey. So we support any employer of any size, so be smaller ones or larger ones, and we provide free support. So feel free to contact us after this.
And when it comes to hiring people with disabilities, a lot of companies might think there's a lot of hurdles, it might be a real challenge to prevent them. Is that the case? Talk us through what they should do or can do.
Yeah, so maybe a question to all of you, like what do you think as well might be the challenges, you know, when you think about hiring a person with a disability, what comes to your mind? Is it the talent pool that you think about, or is it the challenges? Because many times we feel that employers just have different fears around starting their journey of employing people with disabilities, but if you think about it, it's really a huge talent pool for you. In Ireland, we know that 22% of our population, so more than 1.1 million people, have a disability. So it's 1 in 5 of us. So if we think about this room and the people online, so more than 25 of us have a disability. And 80% of them are invisible. So I'm a person with an invisible disability myself. So probably you in your life already are working with people with disabilities. You might have yourself a disability. So just think about the big talent pool that you have. And the fears that we have are usually around the cost of hiring people with disabilities. And maybe I will talk about that later, about the different supports that are available. And also employers might be just a bit worried around how to start the journey. Sometimes it might feel, that maybe there are too many legal obligations, or you might be afraid to use the wrong language around even like starting to hire someone, but there are so many supports available, and I think the most important aspect is really focus on the talent and the strengths that the people might bring to you.
Yeah, and you're dead right. Focusing on the talent is the most important thing. And there's many programs out there that people just won't be aware of, like the WAM program or AHEAD. Maybe just because I'm going to ask Aoife a little bit about that, but maybe you can just give us an overview of these programs for us, for the audience.
Yeah, exactly. So there are many, many supports available, and most of them, I think, again, it's really outstanding in Ireland that most of them are supported by the government, because there is the National Human Rights Strategy for Persons with Disability, so it's really a big focus there. So we are there as Employers for Change, so we provide trainings and free consultations, and we have a lot of guidelines and toolkits available for you. And one thing maybe that I would like to highlight, that we partnered with an organization called AHEAD, and Deirdre is here as well, and I know we'll hear more about their work, and they're focusing on supporting students and in general higher education to make it more disability inclusive. And with them we have developed a framework which is called the WIDE framework, so which is standing from Widening Inclusion in Disability Employment. And it's, so imagine it's like an online platform where you get all the answers to all your questions. So for example, if you want to start a journey and you are unsure about how to create, let's say, an inclusive job advertisement, then you can go on the platform and you can go into the recruitment section and you can find guidelines and tips. And this framework is a result of a 2-year-long research and also a wide variety of different consultations that we had with people with lived experience, because this is a very important aspect that I would encourage you to work with the partners and also organizations and engage with tools that were developed together with people with lived experience, because co-creation is really important, that people with lived experience are involved in that.
Fantastic. Aoife Nickena, welcome. You're a UCC graduate. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what led you to the WAM program.
So when I was in primary school, I suppose I got diagnosed with dyslexia and dyspraxia. And I suppose from a really young age, I knew I learned kind of differently from everyone else. And I think when you're younger, you just kind of want to fit in and you don't see it as kind of like a benefit. So I then went to UCC and I did arts, and while I was at UCC I would have availed of some disability support, so I would have gotten extra time and a spelling waiver in exams and stuff, and that was really, really beneficial to me. But I think at the time I didn't really use all the services that were kind of available apart from those, just because I think there's such a stigma, especially when you're younger, you just kind of want to fit in and not kind of make a nuisance. It's such an Irish thing. But then when I finished university, I moved home to Kerry. I would have worked in hospitality and retail quite a bit, and I found it really, really difficult to kind of get into employment. And just because I suppose when employers are probably getting CVs, they're comparing me, I suppose my CV wouldn't have been as great as other applicants. And I suppose that's really hard to kind of deal with as well. You're kind of comparing yourself to everyone. But I got my kind of first kind of big girl job. I worked for the CSO, so I would have been kind of managing the local census in West Kerry, and that was a 6-month contract, and I really, really enjoyed that. I was managing a team of 11, so it was a really great experience. And then I would have moved on to another company, and this would be a really big multinational company. And in my previous role in the CSO, I wouldn't have disclosed my disability because I didn't kind of feel the need to, because it was a 6-month contract, and I was kind of embarrassed about it as well, I suppose. But when I started this new job, I disclosed kind of my disability and my kind of needs and stuff. At the beginning, I might need a little bit of extra I suppose, time and support, just to kind of grasp exactly kind of what the job entailed. And I didn't really get that support. So when I stumbled across like the RAM program, my confidence was kind of like at an all-time low. I really didn't kind of believe in myself or like my capabilities. So I went in with kind of really like low expectations, and yeah, it was really a blessing in disguise.
So what was it that WAM gave you? So this was a program that supported you much more than you certainly had been in your previous role. So give us some examples of what the program did for you that helped you.
Yeah, so I think from the outset, you know, you're kind of in contact with WAM and your employer. Well, WAM do most of the kind of work and stuff revolving around, you know, when you kind of disclose your disability. And I think it's such a vulnerable thing to do, and it's very personal as well. And I think they handle it like really sensitively. So like that whole transition into work and kind of like explaining maybe what your needs are. Like for me, it was just like maybe at the beginning like a little bit of training, and then just maybe a little bit more time. And yeah, it was great. So I was working with, well, I still am working with ESB, but my original contract through like the WAM program with them would have been that. And I suppose everyone goes in with like the same expectations. So my employer, ESB, would have known exactly, you know, kind of what I wanted from the program. And I would have been able from like the outset to just get as much out of it as possible. And what I found with ESB is that they were super inclusive. They really made me feel like part of the team, which is something I didn't get in my previous role. I mean, I think one of the big things when I started with them was like somebody asked me to go to lunch, as in like the whole team were going for lunch, and I was kind of shocked because in my previous role, like nobody would go to lunch together. There wasn't kind of like a community, which is so important, I think, when like work is such a big part of your life, and you know you want to feel like you're a part of something. So they really made me feel like included and stuff. And like a year or two ago, I would never have been able to come up and talk in front of all of you here. So it's been really great.
Well, that's fantastic, and it's great to hear, and brilliant. The WAM program sounds fantastic, and the role in ESB. Just back to you, Anna, briefly. In terms of supports, we all like to hear about supports. What kind of financial or government supports might be available to SMEs?
Yeah, there are lots of supports, and back to maybe the WAM program and talking about hiring and attracting students and graduates, I would also recommend for you to start building these inclusive environments already prior to you starting to kind of hire people. Because as Eva mentioned, I think to have already an inclusive environment created from the start is so important, because that's the way to really attract the talent. And we know that in higher education, 8% of the students, they have engaged with disability supports. And I don't know if you agree, I think the supports, especially in the larger universities, I know myself, are just outstanding. So many times students with disabilities are thankfully getting the support in the university. So when they are starting to look for jobs, they might expect as well supports, and they want to look for really inclusive employers. And back to your question about the support, so we are there, AHEAD is there, and there are so many other organizations that are there for you. So I think one of the main messages that you shouldn't feel that you are on your own. You shouldn't really figure it out, because this is a really complex topic, and I think we all acknowledge that. So we are there to support you. And in terms of financial supports, maybe just to highlight a couple from the government. So the Department of Social Protection, they are responsible for it. So if you have questions, so Intreo is your go-to kind of organization, and we are happy to help kind of clarify those. But they have launched recently, like a year and a half ago, the Work and Access scheme. I don't know if any of you have heard about it. but it's a set of, I think, 7 different supports for employers and also employees with disabilities. And the main idea is, that you really shouldn't think about cost as kind of a barrier for you. So they are removing that. So one of the first ones that I really recommend looking into, and I think it's a great one, is that if you want to hire, let's say, a person with a disability, and you are going through the process, and maybe you hire them, and they are unsure about what reasonable accommodations they might need in the workplace, one of the first ones is that they fund, I think, up to 2,500 euros, a workplace needs assessment. So you can work with, let's say, an occupational therapist who can then do an assessment and advise you, the employee, as well, what supports they need. And once they identify the supports needed, then the government will fund it. So let's say many times it's simple as, getting an ergonomic chair for them. Or if it's a little bit more complex, let's say, like having ongoing occupational therapy support, then the government will fund it as well. And another one that we use a lot with our partners and our clients is the training fund. So you can get almost for free training around disability awareness, inclusive recruitment, so they fund 90%, 80 to 90% of that. That's one aspect. And another aspect is the wage subsidies scheme. I don't know if you are aware of that. So when you are hiring a person with a disability, then based on the name, so they really subsidize the salary. And this year, from April, they will increase it to 7.5 euros per hour. So the government is really encouraging employers to attract disabled talent, and acknowledging that you might have a bit of reservations in the beginning. So it's really a lot of support there, even financially. And there is much more, but just wanted to highlight the main 2 ones.
I'd say, Anna, you'll be in big demand afterwards, because you could go and find out yourself, or you could just ask Anna. They're the 2 choices you have after this. Okay, so thank you for all that information. And just one last thing for you, Aoife. So would you have advice for SMEs? Do you believe the WAM program is something they should be looking at?
Yeah, I definitely do. I kind of feel that ahead kind of have a structure in place before you kind of get an employee into employment. Like, again, there's already a needs assessment done before you start, so it's really easy to articulate your kind of needs and stuff. And then as well, I really feel, because initially I was with ESB for 9 months, and you have a lot to prove, so you do tend to work a lot harder, and because you do really have to prove yourself, because obviously at the end you really want to kind of work again internally. And then I do think neurodivergent people do have a very creative way of thinking, so I really do think that's another benefit to companies. So
fantastic, Eva, thank you. Jennifer, you've been very patient down there, so thank you. Jennifer, you're the head of international for IUA, so maybe tell us firstly what that entails.
Yeah, great. And it's very hard to follow 2 previous speakers, but so I'm head of international at the Irish Universities Association, and I work with the VPs for Global across our 7 universities. We work with our international directors and our international student experience, but we also tap into colleagues like Orla in the career offices and work across, really to make sure the supports are in place for our international students who choose Ireland to come here and study, whether that's undergraduate or whether it's those who decide to come here to do their Masters or their PhD.
Yeah, and obviously considering hiring international students is something everybody's always thinking about, but maybe people feel it's too hard, too difficult, too time consuming, or many other things. Can you disabuse us of that, or tell us how you would even start this if you're an SME?
Yeah, you can't underestimate the pool of talent that is available to you within our international graduates, and even from when you're an undergraduate. So undergraduate students can actually work up to 20 hours per week during term time, and then during the summer or Christmas time they can work full time. So you can already be tapping into that pool of talent at a very early stage when the international student comes to Ireland, through internships and placements as well. We've our excellent staff across our 7 universities as well work really hard to ensure they work locally with yourselves, with SMEs. We've heard about all the supports today, so I don't need to repeat them. but really important. Our international graduates, our international students, a lot of them do bring with them previous experience. And they're multilingual, so they have that language that we crave here. They can meet those critical skills gaps that we have. They can really tap into that. And they're a very dedicated workforce. A lot of our international students come here because they know that they will have the opportunity to work and invest in Ireland and stay on. They want to stay on. They want to prove themselves to you as employers. And there are support systems in place. We can actually work together with the student, with the company as well, to identify where they can meet your skills needs and your skills gaps. So it's really, really important to pool of talent as well, in terms of they bring with them analytical skills, global perspectives. A lot of them, as I've already said, may have previously worked as well in an organisation, so they bring that soft skills as well, to hit the ground running if they come to work in your organisation. So there's a lot of benefits that they bring, and we need to just really increase that awareness. I can talk about the supports as well. And how
Yeah, well, just before you, if people were asking what are the things that people generally hire, are there certain trends? Like what are people bringing from abroad at the moment?
So what we find is a lot of our international students pick business, law, pharma, med, technical skills, at the moment cybersecurity, data analytics, all of those. So they bring those, they're really interested in investing and coming to Ireland to do those courses, but then they also want to stay on and do that. So they can bring those kind of skills that we may not already have, or many of our Irish students or students who study in Ireland may not have, so they have that experience too.
And of course we're always interested in hearing about supports, Jennifer, so maybe tell us what supports might be available to SMEs.
Yeah, loads of supports are available. So firstly, as I mentioned already, the student can work part-time when they're an undergraduate. We have when the student is graduating, they can avail of a Stamp 1G. It's a postgraduate work visa. What that means is you can actually hire a graduate in your company if they have a degree. If they graduated at a degree level, they can work for up to 1 year without a work permit. If they have masters or above, they can actually work up to 2 years without a work permit. And this scheme is in place to allow the student to spend some time working in companies and finding out what's a fit for them. But it also gives you as a company, especially as an SME, who may not have that HR support, may not have that link into or experience working in the work permit side of things, it gives you an opportunity to work with the student on this scheme and then decide, and for a lot of our students that do this, they prove themselves to you, and then the next step would be to tap into either if they're fit for a critical skills work permit or a general work permit, and you both work together in terms of applying for that. But it is a two-way process. We had a wonderful intern with us in the Irish Universities Association called Vish Gain. He was doing a master's in DCU, and he spoke on one of these previous events down in UL. And what really came out, a part of that, was that it's a two-way process. So it's up for the student to show you they're worthwhile, that they're dedicated, they want to stay on, they're loyal, they're committed. They also have the skill sets that you need. But then it's up to you to work together then for the work permit process, and that is the next step. So there are the supports there. You may also have some international students who decide to carry out, go down the research and development route, research and innovation route. And at the Irish Universities Association, we actually host, as part of our Your Access office, it's a research and mobility support. So supports for our researchers to come to Ireland. It's a hosting agreement scheme, and that is a fantastic work permission for researchers who the company has to be accredited, you have to be carrying out R&D, and you have to go through a process to showcase that that is a research and development role that they'll be filling. But once all of those checks and balances have been completed, a researcher can actually come and stay without the need for a work permit. They can bring their family with them, so it's family reunification, and then after 2 years they can actually apply for long-term residency. That's another great opportunity. And then I know that Helen's going to talk about the Grad Start scheme, which is another.
And they're also allowed not bring their family with them if they prefer. Okay, so it's not they're not forced to. Thank you very much for that. And finally, Helen, who's Skills Policy and Strategy Partnership Lead in Enterprise Ireland and has done a huge work behind the scenes helping the rest of the team bring this together. So maybe to talk about supports in EI, firstly around kind of the talent pipeline and diverse talent.
I suppose the key thing just in terms, I mean, you've heard an awful lot today. It's been a huge amount of information in terms of absorbing it. But how do you really access this information and how can Enterprise Ireland support you? And we really are actively want to support you to address your talent and skills needs. So a few supports that we have Grad Start, which, where you can place a graduate within your company for a 2-year period. And we support companies during that process. We've placed over 300 graduates through that. There's also a language Grad Start to promote international graduates to come in with language skills and build language capabilities within SMEs. You've heard earlier on in relation to the Work Ready graduate program, which is connected into the tech centres. So there's one in Learnovate in Trinity, there's also CEDAR in UCD and across the board. And this really helps build out capability in AI, tech development, and have an opportunity for that person to have experience when they're placed within your company. In terms of research talent, we also have PhD Start, where you can actually bring in a PhD talent into your company for a 2-year period to build out and look at new business model innovation, new technical developments within your business. So that's another area. And then I suppose just following on from the discussions in relation to Portal, we have innovation vouchers for partnerships with the universities in terms of building out innovation ideas, innovation partnerships. So there's opportunities to build out all of those capabilities. And we also have a training grant internally in EI that's a strategic training grant to help businesses build capability. We have a talent team in EI that provides OD and HR advice to build out the roles and responsibilities within your business and leadership and management development programs. But really what we're trying to do is work with you in a 360 way, and we would really encourage you to talk to your client advisors in Enterprise Ireland to be able to discover more about the packages and supports available to you.
And did you also mention to me around workforce planning? You can help companies with that. Would that be kind of part of the same process, or?
Yeah, so Robin Cosgrove is here in the room, who manages our Spotlight on Skills program, which is our partnership with the Department of Further Higher Education, Research, Science and Innovation, and with the Regional Skills Forum managers. So Natasha talked about that earlier, and Sarah is here also from the Regional Skills Forum. It's really about a partnership to help companies build a strategic workforce plan for your business, future-proof your business in terms of skills, connect you in with the right people in terms of the education provision, whether that's universities, SkillNet, Solus, wider education. And then also we very much, we are a central voice for our clients into policy, funding provision, and also to influence program design and development, which Orla was talking about earlier on. So that's one program. And my other colleague, Yvonne, runs a talent attraction and retention workshop. And that program is really about supporting companies to develop an employer value proposition in terms of how you sell yourself to talent, how you market yourself to talent, and how you put a strategic plan in place to build your business capability, and that we can support you on your growth journey, really.
Wow, there's a lot there. There's a lot there. Does anyone have, before we finish up this panel, does anyone have a question for the panel? I'm conscious it's close to the end of the day, but does anyone have a question? No? I'm going to finish by just saying on this that there's a huge amount in there, and the challenge obviously for anyone who's an SME going, I'm already really busy, I don't have time for all this, so maybe just try and pick one thing, one area that you think you could focus on, and as I said, rather than doing the work yourselves, speak to the guys here and get that information and actually start the process. So could you put your hands together for our panelists? Thank you very much. You can sit down. And for our closing comments, I'm delighted that we're joined by the Provost of Trinity, Linda Doyle. So Linda, welcome very much, and we'll hand over to you. Thank you.
Hello everyone. I'm really delighted to be here, and I hope you've enjoyed the day. I only managed to come in at this panel, and certainly I have to say I learned a good few things on it. It was great, and I very much hope everyone found this very useful. I just want to make a short few comments. I'm cognizant of the fact that people probably are tired and there has been a lot of information. I suppose for me, and I know Paul, you will probably have alluded to this, I mean, Ireland has done very well out of FDI, but for me it's really, really important, really, really vital that Indigenous industry hugely thrives in the country. And I do think that it is not given enough attention, and there is much more for us to do. And I say that very much with us also putting up our hand as a sector and saying that the big message for us is that we are really, really keen to be part of making sure that it thrives more and more and more. And in fact, I would go on far to say unless Ireland actually directly deals with this issue, I think things will be tougher and tougher for us. So for us, the point of having something today with the fantastic people at Enterprise Ireland, led through the IUA, and we're very delighted to have it hosted here, is to say that we are ready and willing and able to help, and I hope you got a good flavour of that today. So what you've been hearing about is you've been hearing about the different kinds of courses people can use to upskill, and I suppose my message, I know for example you've gotten a flavour of micro-credentials and all sorts of things that can be done. For us in Trinity, just to say that we know we have to adapt further, and why we will always have the kind of 4-year degree and the 4-year PhD, taking things further, making it more adaptable, thinking about people throughout their life and how they skill is increasingly important to us and the sector more widely. And what you see at the moment is a kind of really, really explosion of interesting courses to do to different timelines and in different ways, and what you're going to see is more of that. That's the first thing. The second thing, and I hope you got a flavour of it today, is about how much research matters. And to the point you were just making, I know it can be completely complicated and difficult, especially if you're a small company, to engage, but that research piece is really, really important. And here in Trinity, for example, IBM Research actually is physically now based here. They sit in this campus and they come to work here when they come to work. And for us, that kind of porous thing where industry can sit side by side is really, really important, and avail of things kind of by osmosis as well, rather than having to make a kind of big, huge effort to kind of go and learn something is increasingly important, and we see that throughout the university sector in Ireland as well, and we're always willing, as are all of us, to figure out how that can happen more. And also, and I thought the panel was fantastic, that access to the talent pool, that's the third thing that's really important. And what I loved about the panel is that widening piece. But I suppose what I would say as well, when you're thinking of who you employ, sometimes it's actually got nothing to do with the course they study. When I look at students here who I hugely find impressive are the ones who get involved in Trinity Formula, and they build the Formula 1 car, and they compete in competitions, and they come from all different disciplines, and they learn those softer and wider skills that you're looking for as well. So being exposed to the different ways people learn in the university is really important. And then there's just two, I suppose, further points I'd want to make, I suppose, beyond the ways that you may have heard of today that I feel the sector can help. So the first really, excuse me, is in that long-term thinking. So I do think, despite Ireland having some, 2040 plans, that we have lost a little bit of the kind of hunger we had a couple of decades ago, where we did that kind of foresight activities and we talked about research and innovation, and we were kind of pushing the envelope a little bit more. And I think it's our job and our role in the university sector to both serve, as we're trying to do today, as well as challenge society, and to kind of really push those things forward. So that for me is a really important thing. And the second thing I would say is where we can also play a role, and I hope we really do, is in that leaning into Europe. So I think Ireland is not leaning into Europe enough over the past while. And when you look at the opportunity we have in terms of the European presidency that's coming up, I think it's really, really important for us to do that. And if you think of a lot of things that are on the agenda, like the multi-annual financial framework budget, the research and innovation plans, and the wider plans, a lot of these are about removing barriers for people to do business in Europe, and I think we could play a stronger and better voice in that, and the universities I think are very well placed to lead in that. What is of particular interest to us in Trinity at the moment, and to other universities, is the 28th regime. I think it's really, really interesting and really important that SMEs are thinking about that. I heard the Commissioner McGrath speak at an event a few months ago, and he made this very interesting statement. He said that while we're obsessing about tariffs internationally, that the friction that exists within Europe is the equivalent of a 40% tariff for goods and over 100% tariff for services. So it's really, really interesting to me about what we could be doing in Europe as well to kind of change that space. So, I know one of the helping Irish businesses go global, that to me is a very, very important part of that. So the universities, I think we spent a lot of our time hanging out in Europe, engaging with these things on a technical basis as well, developing that kind of expertise, and we're doing that because the purpose of that is to share, and the purpose of that is to kind of make Ireland stronger and actually make Europe the kind of place that we can, really, really do fantastic research, innovation and business in, and avail of all of the wonderful opportunities. So they're just a flavour of some other ways on top of kind of our core business of teaching, upskilling, research and talent that I think the sector can actually play a role in this. And I would say that I know at times we can be complicated to engage with, and that's why I thought it was wonderful the way some of the help was being offered here today, where there were contact points. But please don't ever be shy about coming and asking and seeing is there ways that we can open our doors further, we can get better at what we do as well. And with that, I just want to say thank you to everyone. So there's a few names I just want to call out. Just to say, first of all, thank you to all the participants and the panellists, and especially the graduates who participated today. I really, as I said, I certainly found that panel very good myself, and I hope that everyone enjoy the rest of the day. I want to thank the event team, Helen McMahon and Evan Higgins from Enterprise Ireland, Leo Sullivan, Grace Edge and Andrea Bruton from the IUA, and Orla Bannon, I see you there, Orla, from Trinity. So I know a lot of these things, they take a huge amount of work and planning, and the final thing to say is thank you for your time, because I know as well running a business takes an awful lot of dedication, and it is really fantastic for us that you took time out today to join us. So thank you very much.
And we'd like to thank Linda for coming today, because she's incredibly busy, so we really appreciate that. The recording of today's session will be made available for all of those, and all the relevant contacts will be on the website. So we really appreciate the audience, the panel members and everybody. If you haven't seen the Book of Kells, by the way, it's just outside, so you're here now, you might as well see it if you've never seen it. I just want you to think very briefly. There was so much you could think about today in terms of how you connect with universities for talent, how you can connect with them to help partner with you in terms of innovation ideas. You've been invited to the portal by Neil for our coffee. Please take him up on that. We've talked to you about different types of RPL learning, micro-credential learning and lifelong learning, and how to actually reskill or upskill your employees. And we also talked about diverse talent, international talent, and all the supports you can get from the regional forums and the Enterprise Ireland. So there's a huge amount there. Please take one thing from it when you go away, and for those of you who'd like to, we'd love to welcome you for a light lunch and networking with the panellists after that. With that, thank you very much, and we're done.